Episode 51, A Fight That Turned Nasty. The next morning, Dalen still had not left. When Lucia woke up, he was lying down on the bed next to hers. His tall and well-built body barely fit in the bed. "If you keep staring at me, I'll be forced to come over there," Dalen teased as he noticed her gaze. Lucia quickly turned her head and looked at the TV, which was playing reruns of I Love Lucy. Lucia was sure that his eyes were closed. How could he have known that she was looking at him? "Dalen, are you going back to the house later?" Lucia asked after some hesitation. "I'll sleep here as long as you're here," he responded. "You know, they do have nurses here. You don't need to stay. I'm well taken care of," Lucia argued. Dalen's head was resting on his sturdy arm with one leg bent, giving him an indescribable charm. His eyes opened and they shined with a cold light as he looked at her. "Don't be touched. I'm just here to make sure you don't try to run off. Canceling the 3-month deadline is the best way to repay me, though, if you're looking for ways to show your gratitude." Dalen gave her a devilish grin. "You wish," Lucia said, as she lifted off her blanket and got off the bed to use the bathroom. However, in the next second, she was swept off the ground and into Dalen's arms. She protested, but he ignored her and carried her to the bathroom. Lucia looked uncomfortably at the toilet and asked, "How did you know I was going to use the toilet?" "Lucky guess," Dalen answered. Lucia's face turned red as Dalen placed her on the toilet seat. She glanced up at him and said, "You can leave now." "Okay, but I'll be right outside the door," Dalen said. "How am I supposed to pee if I know you can hear me? Just leave the room," Lucia said. Lucia thought it would take more effort to get Dalen to leave, but soon after she said that, she heard his footsteps go to the door and exit. As she relieved herself, Lucia's mind was racing. Was Dalen really as bad as she'd been thinking he was? Dalen had seen her kick Macy, so she pretended to be weak, but really her head barely hurt anymore. But it was kind of nice to be taken care of. She flushed the toilet and washed her hands, but when she opened the door back to her room, Dalen was back, and he once again lifted her up and into her bed. Lucia felt embarrassed, annoyed, and humiliated, but with Dalen's cold and forceful attitude, it was impossible for her to resist him. He was just so strong. Dalen settled her on the bed, and Lucia waited for him to let go. However, Dalen's arms were still around her, and his voice was low and hoarse. He moved his hand to be directly over her heart. "I can feel your heartbeat speeding up," Dalen said, giving her another handsome smile. Lucia's body shuddered, her long eyelashes fluttering. When she realized what Dalen was talking about, Lucia's face turned red from embarrassment. She became angry and said, You're so close to me." But was it too close, Lucia thought? "I love the sound of your voice," Dalen said. Lucia's face was deep red. Dalen looked down at her with a meaningful smile in his eyes. The feeling in Lucia's body was like overturning rivers and seas, gathering dangerously. She was nervous, though, and grabbed a cup of water to splash in Dalen's face. However, the water cup stopped just before she was going to dump it. Her wrist was encircled by Dalen's large hand. Lucia was astonished. She was actually caught? "This is the first time someone's dared to throw water in my face," Dalen said, looking curiously at the cup of water. Lucia was slightly apprehensive. After all, Dalen was strong and inviolable. Just when she thought that Dalen would get mad at her, he spoke up once again. "You have so much courage. Perfect for the woman I like." Lucia didn't know what to say. Her whole world felt off balance. Dalen let her go and went to the bed beside her without another word. She always thought that the person who could match her stubbornness would be the person she'd marry. Was that person Dalen? And if it was really Dalen, then was the universe punishing her for something? Lucia could not accept this fact. Maybe she was just feeling pressured by Dalen because they were so close all the time, so she was acting crazy. Lucia turned her head and saw Dalen with his eyes closed. Once again, Lucia grabbed the water cup and moved toward Dalen with stealth and determination. Then she decisively started to throw the cup towards Dalen without any hesitation. But again, Dalen's hand flew out and grabbed the mouth of the cup, stopping her progress. Lucia stared at Dalen in disbelief as he put the glass of water on the side table. From beginning to end, Dalen didn't even open his eyes or say a word. Lucia went back to her bed and stewed in anger. How could she fail again and again? She had never failed before. Lucia was still angry when she finally fell asleep. Lucia's even breathing was coming from her bed when Dalen opened his eyes. He stared at her and then quietly got out of bed and stepped out of the room. Spencer was there waiting for him. He handed a phone to Dalen. "This is a surveillance recording that was intercepted at the edge of campus," Spencer explained. The video playing on the phone clearly showed Lucia being pushed into the street by Macy. Dalen's expression was suddenly even colder than the hospital's morgue. The strength in his hands was even more terrifying, and the phone shattered into pieces in his hands. Dalen said in a gloomy voice, "We need to show this to the police." Macy had been released from the police station after questioning and was in a miserable state. When she went back home, no one talked to her. It was only later, after repeated persuasion, that her parents let her inside. She went to her room and flopped on the bed and started to sob as if she was in shock. She couldn't cry too much, or people would believe she was guilty. Her eyes were swollen beyond recognition. Barbara became even more annoyed when she saw this. "I told you to go to the hospital, but you refused. You just cried here. How do you want me to fix this?" At this moment, her dad heard the commotion and walked in. He was stunned when he saw Macy's completely changed face on the bed. "Who is this?" "Macy," Barbara said in frustration. "Macy? How did you end up like this?" Her stepfather stared at Macy in disbelief. I... Macy couldn't say it out loud. "Don't say anymore. Let's go to the hospital to take a look. You're obviously distressed." "I'm not going," Macy said, burying her face back in her pillow. Barbara was both angry and worried. She said to Mr. Elrod, "I've tried to persuade her, but she just doesn't want to go. How about calling the doctor over?" He had no choice but to call the doctor. Sometime later, the doctor came to examine Macy and advised her parents to take her to the hospital if the swelling persisted until the next morning. Episode 52, Returning Home. "Doctor, she's not disfigured, is she?" Barbara asked, more concerned about her daughter's looks than her well-being. What future would a girl have if she lost her pretty face? "Probably not. It seems like she just had a fright and is having a bad reaction," said the doctor. Barbara and Macy were the only ones in the room after the doctor left. Macy, with the ointment on her face, had stopped crying. Her mood had calmed down, but she was still depressed. "Talk to me, Macy. What's going on?" Barbara asked again with great patience. "No matter what happened, Mommy will help you." If I say Dalen hit me, can you still help me?" Macy asked. What did you say?" Barbara said in disbelief. At Dalen's parents' home, Victoria was fiddling with her plants in the room she'd been staying in. There were flowers and plants filling the room and spilling onto the balcony. Victoria's personal maid, Jerica, brought the soup over. "Miss, this should help your cold." She could smell the scent of medicine from a distance. Victoria glanced at her and said, "The doctor also said that putting some flowers and plants in the room would be beneficial to my health, and that I need to drink some medicine every day." Jerica rubbed Victoria's cheek. "Miss, what are you thinking about? No matter how good a person's body is, they can't withstand the occasional illness. Mrs. Physique is only slightly worse than others. Listen to the doctor and you'll get better quickly." Victoria knew that her body was strong, but she also knew that Dalen was the only one who could make her happy. Victoria took the soup and drank it all. Jerica took the empty bowl and asked, "Did Dalen divorce that woman?" "Not yet," Victoria said. Victoria noticed Jerica's hesitation and asked, "What's the matter?" "The woman is in the hospital," Jerica answered. Victoria's mouth fell open. "The hospital?" "I heard people talking when I went to the hospital today to get your medicine. It seems that woman's sister pushed her and almost caused a car accident." "Almost. So that's it? Was there even a need for her to be hospitalized?" Victoria said, rolling her eyes. "Well, apparently the sister was in the hospital when Dalen showed up. He slapped her and handed her over to the police." "He slapped her?" Victoria echoed in disbelief. "Yes. How vicious. It was a mess. I think she might have gotten a concussion." Jerica shivered just thinking about it. When Victoria heard this, her expression darkened. She was so angry that she jumped out of bed and started pulling branches and leaves off her plants. Jerica trembled in fright, not knowing how to help. "Miss, don't be angry. Your health is more important," Jerica cried. "Say, does Dalen care about that woman? Does he like her?" Victoria was extremely flustered. It's hard to say," replied Jerica. "If he really did like her, why didn't he tell everyone her identity? Besides, that woman is just a common university student. Maybe Mr. Patrick has his own agenda. He wouldn't fall for someone else with you as an option. But just like that woman from before..." Jerica stopped, knowing she had gone too far, but it was too late to take back her words. Victoria glared at her with a warning gaze. "I don't care what kind of women Dalen was with before or how many of them. The last one must be me." Victoria was full of determination. Lucia's life in the hospital was boring. She didn't feel like a patient at all. After staying for 2 nights, she removed the gauze from her head. There were scabs on her fair and smooth forehead. It wouldn't be long before she was released. However, Dalen insisted that she had to continue staying and be under constant observation. This man was so controlling that it caused her hair to stand on end. Finally, during one of the rare moments when Dalen wasn't in the room, Lucia spotted her shoulder bag, which was not too far away. She got out of bed and took out her cell phone before returning to her bed to play. However, before her game could load, the door to her room was pushed open. Lucia jolted and quickly stuffed her phone under the blanket, lying down innocently. Then she looked over at the figure in the doorway and gaped in shock. It was Jeff. Why was he here? This man gave her a strange feeling. His eyes were cold, his face expressionless. It was as if there was no warmth left in the room. Jeff slowly walked in, and he looked at Lucia with a faint smile. Lucia panicked and laughed dryly. "Are you here to find Dalen? He went out. Since you're here, though, why don't I pour you a cup of tea?" "My favorite is lemon-flavored tea," Jeff said quietly. Lucia's expression went slightly stiff, and suddenly Lucia knew that he knew about what she'd done to his tea before. But even though she was guilty, she still had to pretend that she didn't know anything. "I don't have any lemons here. Sorry," she said with a nervous smile. "Don't tell me that you weren't doing that just to get my attention." Lucia was confused at his accusation. "What's going on here?" A low, cold, and hard voice boomed. Lucia snapped out of her daze and looked at the tall figure that had walked in. Dalen, finally. After he came in, his sharp gaze swept over Jeff and Lucia. Like a blade, it emanated a cold light. Lucia projected an innocent expression, blinking her eyes. "I was looking for you." Jeff's expression did not change. After the 2 men left, Lucia continued to lie obediently on the bed. She thought the 2 of them would talk for a long time, but Dalen came in just moments later. He sat down on the sofa and crossed his legs. The expression on his face was unreadable. "He's gone?" Lucia asked. "Do you care?" Dalen was expressionless. "Of course not," she answered. "Then why do you want to know?" Dalen's face did not look good. "Isn't he your friend? That's why I asked." "He's not my friend," Dalen said harshly. Lucia looked down at her hands. "What were you talking about?" Dalen asked. He seemed to want to know everything. "Nothing. I just told him that you weren't there and that it would be a while. I asked him if he wanted some tea, and he said no. And then you came. That's all." Lucia didn't dare tell him about what Jeff had said right before Dalen came in. She didn't even know what he had meant anyways. Lucia felt that Dalen was too uncertain, not to be trifled with. At that moment, her phone rang. The sound came from under her blankets. Lucia saw Dalen's expression go dark, so she silenced the cell phone under her blanket. Lucia stayed in the hospital for 3 more days and 2 nights before returning to the mansion. However, this didn't mean that she could immediately return to school. She would have to rest at home for 2 more days to avoid any side effects. Dalen's order was firm, so Lucia had to stay in the mansion. Episode 53, That's Enough. After dinner, Lucia stayed in her room and called Cole. "I'm almost done with my recovery. I can go back to school in 2 days." Lucia put her cell phone in front of her and turned on the speakerphone. As she spoke, she chewed on a piece of fruit. "Is it serious? Didn't you say you were fine at the hospital? Why can't you still come to school?" Cole asked curiously. "I feel fine, but Dalen won't let me go to school. But you can come to the mansion to see me." Lucia chewed and swallowed the fruit. "With Dalen over there, I wouldn't make it close to you." Lucia and Cole chatted for a while before hanging up. Lucia thought about it. Her father hadn't called her in the past few days. This meant that Macy did not tell him about what happened that day. Her dad didn't know that she had been in the hospital. Their broken relationship was like a stone in her heart. It was no longer itchy or painful, but rather uncomfortable. The ringing of her cell phone brought her thoughts back to reality. As soon as she looked at the caller ID, she saw it was Axel. She quickly threw away the fruit in her hand and straightened up in bed. She took a deep breath before answering. "Hi, Axel." "I heard you were hospitalized. What's wrong?" Axel's gentle voice was a welcome break from Dalen's hoarse and deep voice. His worry made Lucia's heart warm. "It's just that my head was hit. A slight concussion. I'm fine now." "What hit you?" Axel asked. "The car," Lucia responded. Axel's voice sounded strained and full of worry. "Did you not look for cars when you were walking? This is the second time, you know. You need to be more careful." Lucia remembered that she and Axel met because she was almost hit by a car. All kinds of feelings lingered in Lucia's heart. "What's wrong?" Axel asked after Lucia didn't respond. "Nothing," she said. "I just remembered the first time we met, and I almost got hit by a car. You saved me." "Yeah, looking at you, I wondered if all the beautiful women around the world were as careless while walking down the street as you." Axel's words made Lucia feel a tinge of shyness. For a moment, she couldn't believe that Axel thought she was beautiful. Was Axel trying to flirt with her? Lucia thought to herself. The memory made her feel like she was a teenager, freshly struck by the Cupid. "Well, I'm glad you're fine now. Go to bed early tonight. Don't stay up late," Axel said. I will, Axel. Good night." She was lying curled up on the bed, dispirited, with her back facing the window. She still felt that Axel was the man for her. He was so gentle and understanding. Exactly the opposite of Dalen, who was also so sporadic and unpredictable. Compared to Axel, Dalen had more power and money, but Lucia didn't care. She preferred Axel's softness. Axel said she should sleep early, but Lucia couldn't fall asleep after receiving his call. Since Dalen was out on business, she thought she might as well play with her phone. She played until 11 p.m. when she heard footsteps outside. Lucia's nimble fingers froze, and she immediately threw her phone under the covers, turned off the light, and jumped into the bed. As soon as she was settled, she heard the sound of the door opening. Dalen turned on a lamp and stood in front of the bed, watching Lucia. Lucia remained motionless, pretending to be asleep. Then the light turned off and the door closed. Lucia rolled over and opened her eyes to look at the dark room to make sure that Dalen was gone. She heaved a sigh of relief and said to herself, You scared me to death. Lucia thought about it for a moment. She still hadn't finished her game, so she got up from the bed and started looking for where she threw her phone. However, the hand that was about to reach for her phone froze. With a shocked gaze, she saw a pair of long legs and a tall and straight figure standing by the door. Lucia's heart almost stopped. Didn't Dalen just leave? He tricked her. Do you want to come to my room yourself, or do you want me to carry you? Dalen's voice was low and seductive. Why should I? I sleep so well here. She yawned. I'm still so sleepy. Lucia fell back onto the bed. She closed her eyes and let out a soft snoring sound. Lucia, who had her eyes closed, did not hear Dalen leave. Naturally, he didn't dare to move. Just as she was starting to wonder if he had actually left, she felt him lie next to her on the bed. Lucia opened her eyes in shock and met Dalen's deep gaze. The moonlight softly outlined his cold, angular face. What are you doing? Lucia asked with a shaky voice. What do you think? Dalen's voice was low and hoarse as he asked in a devilish tone. His large hand reached for her arm, and he ran it down her body, reaching under the blanket. Familiar with the way his hand felt, Lucia's heart tightened. She could feel his palm pressing against her hip. It was solid and confident. It can't be like this. Lucia's breathing became erratic, and her face flushed. Every cell in her body was struggling between desire and restraint. Why not? Dalen asked. The scorching heat from his hand swept through Lucia's sensitive nerves. Lucia trembled. Before she could recover from the trembling, Dalen's other hand cupped her face, calming her. Lucia moaned as one hand stroked her cheek and the other reached her thigh and pulled her leg up. Her face was flushed like a beautiful sunset. Dalen's gaze darkened a bit more. I was just going to sleep, Lucia said, trying to stifle another moan. Sleep? How could you sleep now? Dalen asked. No. Really, I was just getting ready to sleep. Lucia refused to admit how much she wanted him to stay. If she admitted it to him, he would never let her hear the end of it. Then what were you doing just now? Dalen's voice was hoarse and his breath was clear and heavy. Before Lucia could finish her words, she saw Dalen take out her hidden phone. Dalen didn't seem to have any intentions of pressing her further on the topic. He just turned the phone off and put it back on the side table. He was closer now, and his hand moved to the back of her head, bringing it towards his. Lucia could feel every part of her body, and the places where Dalen touched were warm. His touch was electric. Dalen moved the hand on her thigh back up to her hip, pulling on the waistband of her pajamas. She took a deep breath and smelled the shampoo he used, a deep, woodsy smell that made her lightheaded. Dalen started to reach under her waistband, and her mind snapped back into focus. She moved her hand to his and guided it out and above the covers before he went too far. That's enough, Lucia said, trying her best to sound stubborn, like one word from him wouldn't melt all her resolve away. Dalen was definitely a dangerous species. Are you sure? Dalen whispered into her neck, softly biting her. Waves of heat were rolling up Lucia's body. Mm-hmm. Lucia groaned, unable to get out anything else. Okay. Dalen laughed as he shifted away. Episode 54, A Sneaky Night at the Bar. Lucia tried her best to ignore Dalen's smile, but it was so beautiful, his white teeth shining in the darkness. She gritted her teeth to keep from reaching out to him. Dalen had enjoyed seeing Lucia's body reacting to his touch. He couldn't help but feel happy about the fact that Lucia was finally beginning to like him as well. He'd originally just meant to cure her habit of staying up late, but he underestimated how intense her reaction would be. Dalen stood up. His hands were still buzzing from the feeling of Lucia's body. His eyes were dark and seductive as he looked back down at Lucia. He could tell she was fighting her instinct for wanting him to leave and her desire for him to stay. His voice was still hoarse. "Sleep well, Lucia." Then he left the room. After hearing the door shut, Lucia released her body and slowly turned around. There was no sign of Dalen. "Looks like he really left," she thought, almost disappointed. Her cell phone was on the nightstand. The next day, Lucia finally went back to school. The doctor had told her that if she wasn't feeling well, she could just lie on the bed in the nurse's office, but Lucia was feeling better than ever. Weakness and lying in bed all day really wasn't her style. Lucia sat down for her next lecture and rested her head in her hands. She couldn't stop fantasizing about last night, about what might have happened if she had let Dalen keep going. Cole nudged Lucia. "What are you doing?" Lucia raised her head and Cole saw the shallow scar on her fair forehead and asked, "Are you all right?" It's done, Lucia said, trying to cover the scar with her hair. "Does your head still hurt?" Cole was puzzled. "No, or at least not because of that," Lucia said, a far-off look in her eyes. Lucia had her troubles. She couldn't say that her heart was slowly moving toward Dalen, right? "So what happened to Macy?" Cole was upset, not knowing how to help. "She got slapped by Dalen and sent to the police station." Lucia had told Cole the reason why she was hospitalized. She and Cole had always talked about everything. "Seriously?" "Yeah, it wasn't bad though. I heard she got off pretty easy," Lucia said. "That kind of person should be locked away. I can't believe she pushed you in front of a moving car. If the driver didn't brake in time, you'd be dead," said Cole. "I know," Lucia responded. Cole now had more respect for Dalen and how well he'd taken care of Lucia. Lucia had never felt that a man with power and influence like Dalen, who had his pick of women, would care about a girl like her. "Dalen is just so overbearing," Lucia said. When Cole heard her words, he couldn't help but laugh. "Have you laughed enough?" Lucia frowned slightly. "You hit the nail on the head. He is definitely overbearing." Cole finally retracted his smile. "But isn't that nice? I mean, he did stay at the hospital the whole time you were there." "Didn't Dalen scare you off when you tried going for lunch?" "That doesn't mean anything," Cole smiled. "Let me ask you, why don't you like what Dalen did?" Cole asked. "If you compare Axel with Dalen, which one do you like the most?" Lucia asked curiously. Cole thought for a moment and said, "Axel is gentle and refined, with the style and manner of a gentleman." He paused for effect. "Therefore, I choose Dalen." Lucia smacked his arm. As the two of them were speaking, a figure appeared in front of them. Lucia raised her head to take a look before quickly lowering her head and continuing to look down. The guy was the one who had tried to hit on Cole a few days ago. "What's up?" Cole asked. "Come to the bar with me tonight," the guy said, rather domineeringly. "Just the two of us?" "No, I've got another friend coming. You can bring your friend along if you want," the guy said. "I'd love for you to come, but if you don't want to, though, you don't have to." Cole was puzzled. "Either way, I know that you like me. If you don't come, it'll just mean that you're too afraid to let your feelings show." With that, he left. He wasn't only demanding, but also narcissistic. Cole looked at Lucia's shoulders shaking with laughter and said with an annoyed expression, "It isn't that funny." Lucia raised her head. There was not the slightest trace of a smile on her face. She was completely expressionless. It was as if the shoulder shake just now had been an occasional disorder of the body. "His acting is definitely good enough to enter the film industry," Cole said, shaking his head. He mocked the same domineering tone as the guy and said, "Come with me to the bar." "You're really going?" Lucia asked. "Why not? I don't actually like him, though, so you have to go too." "Did you forget that I was caught there by Dalen the last time?" Lucia asked. "I haven't forgotten, so we'll only stay for a while and then we'll leave." "You can't not go. Otherwise, others would really think that I like him." Cole mimicked the guy again as both of them shared a good laugh. At 5 o'clock, just as she was about to call the mansion, Lucia's cell phone rang. The caller was Dalen. Lucia's heart tightened. "Hello," she answered. "I'm not going to be at dinner tonight," Dalen said. "When will you be back?" Lucia asked. The other side went silent for a moment, then said, "It might be a little late. Do you think you'll survive without me? Just say the word and I won't go out." Lucia gritted her teeth. "The later you get back in the evening, the better," she said. After hanging up, she called Spencer and informed him about Dalen and her dinner plans. She didn't bother going into much details, thinking that maybe they would assume that she went out with Dalen and wouldn't ask questions. She didn't want them to report to Dalen. At night, the lights in the street were bright. There were a total of 6 students, including Lucia and Cole. Other than the 2 of them, the rest were all seniors. It was better to enter the bar, since the lights were dim and she could forget herself for a while. Before they could take their seats, a man who seemed to be a bit drunk stood in front of them. His eyes dimmed and his face flushed with alcohol. Just as Lucia was about to get annoyed, the man asked, "Are you here to see Mr. Patrick?" Lucia was stunned and shook her head. "I didn't expect that even after so many years have passed. You haven't changed at all." The man clicked his tongue in wonder. Episode 55. A Ghost from the Past or Present Sin? The man kept staring at Lucia. "I know it's been a long time, but you don't recognize me?" He paused, and when it was clear Lucia wasn't going to answer, he said, "You don't know me, do you? I met you years ago, when you came out here to eat with Mr. Patrick." Lucia was even more stupefied. Years ago, she didn't know Dalen. How could she have gone out with him? Seeing that this person had drunk quite a lot, Lucia thought that he must have mistaken her for someone else. "I don't know you. You have the wrong person." Lucia ignored him. "It's impossible to be wrong. If you don't believe me, we can just ask Mr. Patrick." "Dalen is here?" Lucia asked nervously. "That's right. In the VIP room," the man answered. Cole, who was beside her, tugged her sleeve and said, "Go take a look. Let's see what Dalen is doing here." Before Lucia could say no, the man dragged her into Dalen's room. When the door opened, Lucia looked in and saw Dalen, who was sitting among several men. He was lazily sitting on the sofa with one of his legs propped on the low table. His long legs were eye-catching. There were also a few heavily made-up women accompanying them. One of the sexy-dressed women squatted at Dalen's feet and poured him a glass of wine. Dalen's eyes widened when he saw Lucia. While Lucia was also stunned, she was excused towards Dalen by the man beside her. "Mr. Patrick, tell me, haven't we all eaten together in the past? She said that she didn't know me, so she must have forgotten." The man refused to give up. Dalen's expression turned cold and the atmosphere heavy. All the sober people felt Dalen's shift in mood. Lucia found herself falling short of words. She was unable to understand everything that was happening right now. "Take him outside and get him sober," Dalen instructed his guards. Spencer got the bodyguards to drag the man out. The man still didn't understand. "Mr. Patrick! Mr. Patrick! What did I do wrong? Don't you know me?" Lucia was standing beside the woman kneeling next to Dalen. If she looked down, she could almost see straight down the woman's open blouse. Even if Dalen was sitting, even if it was just out of the corner of his eyes, Lucia knew he would still be able to see. Apparently, the so-called not coming home to eat meant coming here to have fun. However, Lucia, who also came here to have fun, was preparing to make the first move. "If I hadn't found you here, I wouldn't have thought you would do such a thing." Dalen still had the cigarette in his mouth as he looked up slightly. He gulped hard and a low voice came out. "I didn't do anything." "Oh, and who would believe that? I have eyes, don't I? I can see what's happening here." At this moment, Lucia felt as if she had caught her husband with a mistress. Other than Dalen and Lucia, the others were like a still background wall. They didn't dare to make any sound. They only broke out in a cold sweat for this bold girl defying Dalen. They had never seen anyone who dared to talk to Dalen like this before. Say what? You can play dumb, but I'm leaving. Lucia picked up the wine the woman poured earlier and downed it in one gulp. Then she elegantly turned around and left the private room. As soon as she walked out of the room, Lucia panted like a puppy in the hot sun. The alcohol that Dalen drank was too strong. Everything was burning, from the tip of the tongue to the pit of the stomach. It almost burned her up. Cole found her in the hall. What's wrong? Is Mr. Patrick really here? Lucia was about to say something when she saw a tall figure chasing after her. I need to leave. Also, don't tell him that I came here to hang out with you. With that, Lucia didn't even look at Dalen and ran out of the bar. Cole silently retreated to the side of the bar. Lucia walked into the street, but an armored car was right in front of her, causing her to stop in her tracks. Someone gripped her arm and she was pulled to the car. Lucia knew who it was without even looking. Looking at the calm Dalen, who was also getting in the car, she started to go crazy. What? I don't want to ride in your car. If you can get past me, you can go home by yourself. Dalen's expression was lazy, but sharp in the dark. How could Lucia get past Dalen? He was so strong that he could hold her there with one hand. I want a divorce, Lucia said furiously. Why? Dalen asked calmly. You have a mistress, said Lucia. Who? The woman who was kneeling beside you just now. I just explained. I don't care. I don't care. Lucia interrupted Dalen. You let me down. I want a divorce. Dalen stared at her deeply, not saying a word. Dalen, are you afraid about me asking for alimony against the divorce? Don't worry. I'll go out clean. I don't want anything from you. Okay? Lucia asked. Dalen still did not speak. His eyes were calm. Fine. I'll even pay you for an alimony fee, okay? Lucia felt that this was the world's most costly transaction. Dalen was so rich. Why couldn't he just give her up? Say something. Give me a price, and I'll try my best to satisfy you. Lucia felt her eyes start to wet. Frustrated tears threatened to fall. She was about to lose her patience. Dalen's eyes were stern. He finally opened his mouth and said, Let's talk after you wake up from your drunken stupor. Lucia couldn't hold it in any longer. She rushed over, grabbed the expensive material on Dalen's chest and yelled, I'm not drunk. I'm very sober. While Lucia yelled, all Dalen did was stand there and take it. Lucia let her hands rest on Dalen's chest, her anger draining out of her. Dalen was extremely tough and tenacious. Dalen was not annoyed by Lucia's impudence. The light in his eyes caught Lucia's gaze. A devilish smile was hidden at the corner of his mouth, and he let out a soft chuckle. What are you laughing at? Do you agree or not? Lucia's grip tightened. How much are you going to give me for the breakup? Dalen asked calmly. I only have $20,000 in my bank. Or maybe 30,000? I'll give it all to you, Lucia said. She was the most aggrieved person in the history of divorce. That's very generous, agreed Dalen. Then do you agree? Lucia smiled. I don't agree, he said simply. You! Lucia's head dropped down onto Dalen's chest wearily as she kept hitting Dalen, flaying her hands in all directions. Dalen let out a comfortable growl that made her blood boil. Lucia kept hitting him, grinding her teeth in anger until she finally ran out of energy. Episode 56, The Morning After. Lucia's numerous efforts to hurt Dalen were all going in vain. No matter how hard she tried to hit him, her small size and build as compared to Dalen was failing her every time. You know you can hurt me in a satisfactory way, too. Satisfactory for both of us? Dalen remarked in a teasingly flirtatious way. This caused Lucia's body to tremble. The mere thought of being risque around Dalen gave Lucia a weird tingling all over her body. But she knew better. Not particularly. Lucia's voice sounded like she was acting coquettishly. Her petite face was flushed like an apple. It seemed like she couldn't handle Dalen's strong liquor. But Dalen was also acting irrationally. I'm sleepy. Don't forget about the divorce. If you agree. But Lucia was quickly losing consciousness, and before she could get the words out, she passed out on Dalen's chest. Lucia slept very comfortably. Next day, when she woke up, her first thought was how very comfortable her bed was today. She felt warm and protected for a change. Wait! Lucia's long eyelashes trembled as she lifted them up. A man's face was right in front of her. Lucia's mind went blank for a moment. A few seconds later, she bolted up like a spring. Despite there being clothes on her, Lucia felt quite exposed and felt the need to cover herself with the blanket. Why are you in my bed? Lucia questioned loudly. Dalen looked at her lazily. This is my room. Lucia looked around. Her heart trembled. This was Dalen's room. Why was she here? She tried to remember the night before. She seemed to have gone to a bar and met Dalen because a man who served drinks at the bar told her something about her hanging out with Dalen before. And then she saw Dalen with a woman. The moment she recalled the face of that woman again, an unknown emotion crept through her nerves. That fact from her past was the last thing on Lucia's mind at the moment. And then she got into the car. And then... You were so enthusiastic last night. Dalen gave her a presumptuous look. What? Lucia could not believe her eyes and ears. Dalen lifted up the blanket. On the left side of his chest, his skin had bite and scratch marks up and down his torso. Lucia didn't want to believe the fact that she gave in to her carnal desires and slept with Dalen. She couldn't have. She knew better than this. She wanted a pass out of this marriage. Dalen gave her this pass last night. She couldn't have ruined it all by sleeping with him. The fact was that she couldn't recall that the marks on Dalen's body was a result of her unfiltered anger, and Dalen seemed in no mood to put her out of her misery. He wanted to play. That's not possible. I couldn't have given you those marks. You are lying to me. Oh, sure. I was attacked by a wild cat. Dalen teased Lucia. I think it was some other woman who did this to you, and now you're trying to blame it on me, Lucia argued. Immediately realizing that she wasn't in the same clothes as she wore last night, her face turned crimson as she continued questioning, How did I get in my pajamas? How do you think? Dalen said, making Lucia even more frustrated. Did you change my clothes? Lucia was furious. But Dalen didn't respond. Sometime later at the breakfast table, Dalen was eating without a worry in the world. Lucia was not the type of person who got drunk easily, but after drinking Dalen's glass of wine, she fell drunk almost immediately. She vowed to never touch his wine in the future. After breakfast, a black card appeared in front of her. Lucia was stunned. It was a credit card? She raised her head and asked in confusion, What's that? In the future, if you need money, just swipe this card. Due to the surprise and shock, Lucia asked again with uncertainty, This card, for me? Yes, answered Dalen. To use any way I want? Lucia asked. To use any way you want, Dalen said. Why did Dalen suddenly give her money? Was this a test? Or did something happen last night that she doesn't remember? Did he mention money last night? This was the last thing that Lucia expected. But then a strange thought occurred in her mind. If she really spent a lot of money, would he get mad enough to divorce her? Lucia thought it was worth a try. That way she would have her escape. All right, I'll accept it. As Lucia spoke, she put the card into her pocket. She had no intention of being frugal. Dalen looked at her with interest. Later, Lucia met Cole at school. Cole, I'll treat you to a meal. Lucia waved her small hand in a straightforward manner. Why? Said Cole, coming over to her. I really can't eat the food in the cafeteria one more time. Let's go, Lucia said. But you've always been a frugal person, haven't you? And now you want to take us both out for a fancy lunch? Cole looked at her suspiciously. Come on, let's go. I'll treat you to food today, Lucia said, dragging him away. The two of them walked off campus, and after walking for a distance, they found a good restaurant. Inside, the two of them sat by the window. The waiter stepped forward. What would you like to eat? What do you have here? Lucia asked. We have all kinds of pasta here. The waiter gave her the menu. There's no need to look. 2 bowls of the most expensive pasta, please, Lucia said. The waiter stared at her to see if she was joking. Cole just stared at her in disbelief. Seeing the waiter in a daze, Lucia asked, Is there a problem? No. Just a moment, please. With that, the waiter left. Cole came back to his senses and said, The most expensive pasta? Why are you treating me to the most expensive dish? As a good friend, Cole naturally noticed her acting weird. Not only was she treating him weird, her eyes were also glowing. There was definitely a problem. Did you go back to see Dalen yesterday? Cole smiled, not really caring. Yes, but all we did was argue. Lucia moved closer to Cole and lowered her voice. Tell me, what does it mean when a man gives you his credit card? Dalen gave one to you? Last night? Cole asked. Yep, said I could spend money as I please, Lucia answered. Cole asked solemnly, Does Dalen have any other friends? Yes, he does. Why is that important? Lucia asked. I want a friend like him who'd give me a card without a limit. No matter what purpose he has, I am willing. Cole's voice was desperate. Trust me, you don't want to be Dalen's friend. I don't even want to talk to him. Plus, Dalen and I have no hopes for the future. I don't like him. Lucia hoped that Cole would find a man he truly liked and trusted. You promised me to find yourself a man who is worthy of you, all right? Lucia suggested to Cole wishfully. What about the man we saw in the parking lot the other day? Cole asked excitingly, trying to hint towards the fact that he might already be interested in someone. Looking at his expression, Lucia was astonished. Who? Jeff? Oh, Jeff. Yes. Cole immediately became shy. Lucia was stunned. So what does Jeff do? Cole continued to inquire. He's a businessman in the Middle East. He doesn't come around much. You're too weird. Why do you even like men with that temperament? Lucia asked, puzzled. Episode 57, Shopping Spree. I like his depth, Cole argued. Lucia wanted to vomit before she even had a bite to eat. Deep? Did he use the wrong word? Can you introduce me to him, please? Cole asked. Why didn't you say that before? Lucia asked. I was embarrassed, Cole responded. And you feel better now? Lucia said. Well, is there a chance? Cole asked. I really don't know about that, Lucia said. You want to ask Mr. Patrick for me? See what kind of guy Jeff likes? Cole smiled embarrassedly. I'll ask when the time comes. Lucia couldn't even bear to listen to him anymore. Cole had an expectant look on his face. Could she really ask him again? Did she have the guts? Cole has horrible taste, thought Lucia. How could he like Jeff? Lucia hoped this was just a phase for Cole. She decided to park Jeff's thoughts aside and steer the conversation towards something else instead. While the two were eating pasta, Cole suddenly remembered the guy who had recognized Lucia from some time back. Oh yeah, did you figure out how you knew that man last night? Lucia had forgotten all about it. Oh, I think it wasn't anything much. I guess he mistook me for someone else, she said with a hint of uncertainty in her voice. Why would he recognize you so wrongly? Cole was curious. A few years ago, I didn't even know Dalen, let alone going out with him. And I'm pretty sure I would remember meeting a guy like Dalen. Do you think he confused you with some other woman? Cole asked. Dalen definitely doesn't lack when it comes to women. There must be some confusion only, Lucia scoffed. Are you jealous? Cole asked with a smile when he saw how bothered she was. Is that possible? Lucia rolled her eyes and continued to eat her pasta. After the meal, Lucia asked for the bill. When the waiter walked over with the bill, Lucia handed him the card. Sorry, we don't accept this card here. Ah! Lucia ended up having to use her own money. After leaving the restaurant, Cole could no longer control himself as he laughed hysterically on the streets. That was hilarious. You should have seen your face. Lucia was so angry that smoke was coming out of her ears. She had excitedly run out to eat the most expensive noodles with an intent to get back at her husband, but ended up paying for them herself. Later, Lucia decided on another way to make Dalen pay for not agreeing to divorce her. Shopping. She left the campus and called for a taxi. Where to? The driver asked. Let's drive to Brand Street. You can take the longer way if you want. The driver thought she was being sarcastic, so he said, I'm sorry, ma'am, but conning people just for a few extra bucks is against my character. But I'm willing to pay you the extra bucks. I wish to take the longer route. As you please, ma'am. The longer route it is. Sometime later, they reached their destination when Lucia excitedly took her card out to pay for the long cab drive. Although she disliked spending extravagantly, spending Dalen's money to get back at him was surely proving to be fun for her. Lucia handed the cab driver her card. I'm sorry, ma'am. I don't accept cards. Only cash, the cab driver insisted. Oh. And just like that, Lucia had to pay cash out of her own pocket. Again, her plans were definitely not working today. Lucia got out of the taxi disappointed. But when she raised her head and looked at the high-end luxury retail shops, her mood lifted. She would buy it all. Lucia was looking forward to seeing Dalen's expression. Lucia strolled from shop to shop buying the most expensive items, shoes, clothes, and jewelry. Her hands were full of shopping bags. After much difficulty, she finally managed to grab all the bags and drag them into another store that caught her eye. She needed a break with the bags. Lucia parked her bags down on the floor to let out a sigh of relief. It felt like she had unloaded a mountain. Should she ask someone to carry her things for her? Can you swipe your card when you hire someone to carry things? The shop assistant was surprised by Lucia's amount of shopping bags. She smiled and asked, What can I do for you? Can I leave these here? Lucia asked about the large bags at her feet. Of course. Please make yourself comfortable, the clerk said. At this moment, a deep voice came from behind her. Having fun shopping? Lucia turned around and saw the face that made her heart beat erratically. Axel. He was smiling at her. Lucia's face turned red as she looked at the items that she had bought. What should she do? What should she say? What would Axel think about her? This was definitely not the plan. She could say that she didn't buy it for herself. It had nothing to do with her. What if Axel thinks that she was a shopping addict? This was too unlucky. Lucia just wanted to somehow divert Axel's attention from all the shopping bags kept around her. What are you doing here, Axel? I don't think they keep men's apparels here. Are you here to buy something for a woman? A girlfriend, maybe? The thought of Axel's girlfriend brought a deep sense of disappointment to Lucia. Maybe Axel never liked her because there was another woman he liked? Before Axel could answer Lucia's question, a woman's voice called him from behind. Lucia was stunned. It was Victoria. Victoria was also surprised to see her, especially when she saw all the bags surrounding Lucia. Oh, look who's here. Looks like you've shopped for an entire year, Victoria said condescendingly. It's hard to come by, so I bought it all at once. Lucia laughed dryly. Axel smiled as he looked at her cute appearance. Oh, of course, why not? She deserves it all. No need to go easy on my brother. Axel chimed in, trying to rescue Lucia from Victoria's judgmental remarks. Lucia felt grateful about Axel defending her. Victoria's expression turned even worse. Tell me the truth. You only married Dalen for his money, right? I knew you weren't worthy of him. Victoria's tone was malicious. Victoria, where are we on that dress you picked? Axel interrupted her before the fight got worse.
Are you all
Yep, let's buy it and go. I'm not in the mood to watch trash try on clothes, Lucia said pointedly. Axel gave Lucia an apologetic look. Lucia smiled at him briefly before saying, Actually, I think I'm also done for the day. I'll head back home myself. It was really nice seeing you, Axel. Likewise, Lucia. Let me... Axel offered. No, you don't have to go through all that trouble. I'll call myself a taxi. Lucia felt ecstatic inside with Axel's offer. Oh, I insist. I don't want my brother sulking over his wife having to take a taxi back home. Lucia agreed. When they were about to get in the car, Victoria said, Brother, why don't you drop her back and I'll take the taxi instead? I don't want to ride along cheapskates like her. With that, she pulled Jerica along and went to take a taxi. Lucia was stunned as she looked awkwardly at Axel. Axel, on the other hand, didn't seem to mind. He picked up her bags and opened the passenger door. Get in. Only then did Lucia come back to her senses and get in the car. Miss, why are you riding alone? Wouldn't that be letting that woman off easy? Jerica did not understand.
Episode 58.
The Raging Suspicions. Say, maybe Dalen just hates her and wants to get her out of the mansion so he doesn't have to deal with her. Victoria's voice was weak, but her words were filled with astonishing calculations. Jerica immediately understood. Miss, you're so smart. That must be it. How could Dalen marry a girl who didn't know anything? Only she was worthy of Dalen. In Axel's car, Lucia stared out the windshield, not believing her luck. What are you thinking about? Axel asked. Nothing. Thank you for driving me home. We're all family. No need to thank me. Even in the past, there was no need to thank me, Axel said easily. Lucia and Axel were quite close in the past. It was only after the marriage that things felt awkward. Why was this happening? Logically speaking, marrying someone and being friends had nothing to do with each other. Lucia thought it might be her own fault. I know. Lucia didn't know what to say. Are you upset? Axel suddenly asked. Huh? Lucia didn't understand. Victoria's personality is a bit much, Axel said. So sometimes she doesn't get along well with others. My mother told me to take her out for a breath of fresh air today, and that's when we saw you. I believe you've met, haven't you? I wasn't at the last family dinner. Yes, we've met. Axel smiled and didn't say anything. After a long while, Axel asked, How are you and my brother doing? We're all right. Lucia didn't know how to reply. She couldn't say that she thought about getting a divorce every day, and she even came here to try and splurge all his money in an effort to make him despise her. Axel didn't say anything else and focused on the road in front of him. Lucia thought about something and asked, Axel, I have something to ask you. Go ahead. Do you remember me ever meeting Dalen in the past? Axel's gaze flashed over to her. Why do you ask? Last night, a man insisted that I had dinner with him and Dalen years ago. You know, I didn't know Dalen a few years ago, Lucia explained. Maybe I was wrong, Axel said cryptically. Lucia's clear brows were furrowed because she didn't understand his answer. It wasn't the first time that Lucia felt this way. Jeff always said that her face was familiar. Then it was the man in the bar. Although Lucia felt that it was highly likely she was mistaken, she still felt it was strange. That was why she asked Axel. However, Axel also said that he was wrong. The car kept driving into the mansion and she saw Dalen's car in the driveway. The first thing Lucia saw when she got out of the car was Dalen's cold face. His black eyes stared at her. Lucia's heart shuddered. Axel brought out Lucia's bags. When he saw Dalen, he said, "I was out shopping with Victoria and we ran into Lucia. I thought I'd give her a lift home." Dalen's cold face did not change at all. "If you were with Victoria, why is it that I only see the two of you?" "Victoria went back in the taxi by herself," Axel said. There was no need to explain further. It was a very normal thing to say. However, in Dalen's eyes, it was as if Axel had accompanied Lucia shopping, accompanied her left and right, and then sent her home. Spencer went up to Axel and took the items from his hands, saying, "Thank you." Axel smiled but did not say anything else. He turned around and got into the car. Lucia thought this was too serious. Dalen was still staring at her. "What? Axel was only sending me home. Nothing else happened," Lucia explained with a trembling hand. "You already have a man, yet you want others to help you?" Dalen's face was cold. "That's your little brother. There's no need to be suspicious of us." Dalen swung Lucia over his shoulder, carrying her back into the house. No matter how Lucia struggled, she couldn't escape. "Ah!" Lucia stumbled when he put her down and she fell onto the sofa. Lucia stood up from the sofa. Her nerves were tense as she faced Dalen, who was obviously still upset with her. "You don't have to do this, okay? I'm telling you, nothing happened," Lucia muttered. "But did you hope something would?" Dalen's deep voice was edged with anger. "Of course not. I was just passing by." Lucia was so shocked by Dalen's reaction that she retreated a few steps. Spencer walked over carefully. "Mr. Patrick, it's time for dinner." The tension in the air seemed to have reached its limit. Dalen's voice exploded out of him. "From today on, you are not allowed to take even half a step out of this house." Lucia was stunned and raised her head. Dalen's tall and straight figure had already turned to the dining room. Lucia came back to her senses and chased after him. Looking at him seated at the table, she asked angrily, "What do you mean? You can't just go around commanding me like that. If you don't want me to leave the house, you might as well tell me not to eat." "Remove her cutlery." Dalen's face darkened as he commanded the staff. John's hand paused as he looked at Lucia, who also had a frozen expression on her face. He silently took back the silverware. Lucia was so angry that she turned around and left, angrily stomping her feet on the floor. Lucia was pacing angrily in her room, mumbling abuses at Dalen just when her stomach growled with hunger. With one hand on her stomach, Lucia couldn't stop thinking about all her favorite dishes prepared for dinner. Who was Dalen to stop her from eating after all? Lucia was infuriated. She decided it was better to rebel than to starve, and so she walked back to the dining area where Dalen was still enjoying all the food by himself. Dalen noticed Lucia walking back and kept eating as if he did not notice Lucia or her anger. Lucia was initially angry, but the delicacies of the food that followed made her drool uncontrollably. She hadn't realized how hungry she was. Dalen was even more outrageous as he purposely ate all of the dishes that she liked. Lucia couldn't help but stretch out her hands. However, her wrist was stopped by Dalen. She met Dalen's eyes with stubbornness. "You're not allowed to eat it," Dalen said. "I will eat. Let go." Lucia didn't care. Only when she was full would she have the strength to fight against Dalen. Dalen pulled her arm over to him, and Lucia crashed into Dalen's firm chest. It was clear how much strength he had. Lucia was furious. She wanted to get down from Dalen with a flushed face, but she couldn't compete with Dalen. Episode 59, Let Me Out. "Let me go!" Lucia tried to free herself from Dalen's hold. Her face was so close to his, Dalen could see her watery eyes and her blinking long eyelashes. She was on the verge of tears. He let her go. "Go to your room," Dalen said in a deep voice. "What?" Lucia said in disbelief. "Order her around." "If you resist, then you'll regret it," Dalen threatened. What a tyrant, Lucia thought. Dalen was not a human, he was a monster. In the blink of an eye, the results of today's shopping spree could be seen. The clothes, shoes, and accessories had all been organized in her room while she was eating. Lucia found her receipts. She took it to her bed and used her cell phone to calculate the total. 340,000. Lucia could not believe she had spent all of this. She started counting again. It was still the same number. Did Dalen know she was so wasteful today? Did he just see what she bought and not know the price? Lucia felt the need to tell Dalen. Lucia took the receipts and found Dalen in his study. She slapped all of them in front of him at his desk. He glanced at her expressionlessly. "Do you see that?" Lucia asked. "I see it." Dalen's gaze continued to focus on the computer in front of him. "And? You don't have anything to say?" "What do you want me to say?" he asked. Lucia tapped the bottom amount with her finger and said, "Look at this. $340,000. I spent it all in an hour or so today. Don't you have any thoughts?" "Nope." Dalen was still expressionless. This made Lucia anxious. 340,000, not 34. Dalen squinted as he stared at the adorable Lucia. Then he reached out his hand and circled around Lucia's neck, landing on the back of her neck and pulling her closer to him. Lucia stiffened her neck, feeling that the hand had taken control of her body. She could only hold her breath. "Your husband, me, deposits $100 million in this account every week, so you can feel free to spend as much as you want. If you can't carry everything, I'll have someone follow behind you. When you're happy, buy things. When you're sad, buy more things. I make this money for you, okay?" His voice was low and serious. Lucia's entire body froze. She couldn't get that much money in a week, even if she broke her hand doing work. Dalen smiled indulgently and let go of Lucia's neck. Lucia stood there, looking at Dalen staring at the computer expressionlessly. To be honest, no matter whoever the woman was, anyone would want to be treated like the queen of Dalen's world. Lucia admitted that she was a common person. For a minute, Lucia started contemplating being nice to Dalen for a change. She thought, why don't I stop tormenting him and just do what he says? However, when Lucia looked toward Dalen's stoic figure, she immediately gave up on that idea. She would never be happy here. Dalen almost seemed happy that she spent so much money, like it turned him on. Why did Dalen have that reaction? Could it be that she can make Dalen feel that way by spending his money? It seemed to be very strange. Lucia knew that some people had weird kinks, but Dalen's kink was way too weird. "Are you so touched that you want me to sleep with you right now?" Dalen's sinister and low voice sounded. Lucia shivered as she came to her senses. She glared at Dalen and said, "I'm going to sleep on my own bed." With that, she ran away. Lucia went back to her room and slumped on the bed. Thinking of something, she got up. She took out the card and looked around at all her new things. Lucia remembered that when she was young and finally saved some pocket money, she suddenly didn't know how to spend it. After buying what she wanted to eat, she found that there was still a lot left, and she didn't know what to buy next. That was how she felt now. She had access to so much money, but she didn't know what to do with it all. There's more money here than I've ever seen in my entire life. There was no way she'd be able to spend it all. Not only was Dalen not mad at her, he even got excited about it. Was there anything more abnormal than this? Luckily, she only spent $340,000. If she spent $3.4 million, then how excited would Dalen be? How terrifying. Lucia rolled on the bed in distress. The next morning, she ate breakfast together with Dalen. It was no different from before. After eating, she told Dalen as usual, "I'm going to school." Lucia picked up her shoulder bag and walked out, but she was stopped by guards when she arrived at the gate. "What do you mean?" Lucia was puzzled. "Sorry, we can't let you leave. Mr. Patrick's order." The two guards stood in front of her, blocking her way. She was so angry that she threw her backpack and turned around to look for Dalen. When she entered the door, she almost bumped into his firm chest. After taking 2 steps back, she asked, "Dalen, what do you mean by that? Why won't you let me out?" "Remember, you are not allowed to take even half a step outside of the house. My orders are all there is," Dalen lightly said. However, it infuriated Lucia to no end. "I'm still a student. If I don't go to school, what else can I do?" "Be my woman." Lucia said nothing. Dalen walked past her proudly. Lucia immediately gave chase. "I can be your woman and a student at the same time. It isn't an issue." "I think it's a big deal." Dalen's long and narrow eyes were filled with stubbornness. After saying that, he turned around and got into a car. "Wait!" Lucia had just opened her mouth, but before she could say anything, the car door closed right in front of her. She watched as the cars passed in front of her and through the gate. Lucia shouted, "Come back!" But the car disappeared behind the closed gates. Lucia rushed to the gate and was stopped again. After trying to force her way through for a long time, Lucia finally gave up and tried a new approach. Lucia returned to the hall and grabbed a passing servant. Episode 60, A Great Burst of Acting. Lucia found the first person she could and asked, "When Dalen isn't here, who is in charge here?" "Edward, the house manager," the maid answered. "Very good." Lucia found Edward and demanded, "I want to go out." Edward thought for a moment, then said, "This is Mr. Patrick's order. We cannot overrule him." Lucia called Dalen countless times, but no one answered. After that, she called Cole dejectedly. "Cole, help me get a leave of absence." "Why leave? Are you hurt?" "No!" Lucia yelled in frustration. Cole's ears rang from her loud voice. It wouldn't simply be chest pain or something, or else she wouldn't be roaring so fiercely. "Then what happened to you?" "I'm basically being abused here," Lucia said calmly. Edward, who was walking behind her, slightly lost his composure at her words, but walked past without a change in expression. "What? Domestic violence? Heavens, are you okay, Lucia? Do you want me to call for help?" Cole said, trying to remain calm. Lucia gritted her teeth and bit her lips while enduring the pain. "It's not that. It's mental violence." "What do you mean?" Cole asked. "Dalen won't let me leave the mansion, that's all," said Lucia. "You're trapped there? So what did you do? You offended him?" Cole asked. "I offended him? Forget it. Anyway, I can't explain right now. Just help me request a leave of absence. I want to be quick," Lucia answered. "I have a question," said Cole. "What?" asked Lucia. "Is one day enough? If it's not enough, I can help you ask for a few more days," said Cole. Lucia had been trying to calm herself down, but Cole's question racked her nerves. After hanging up the phone, Lucia used her small hands to calm the raging blood in her chest. Dalen was too much. She thought he was just saying it, but he actually locked her up. "I'll go on a hunger strike until you let me out." Lucia was furious at both Edward and John. She then turned around and returned to her room, feeling helpless as ever. John looked at the angry figure retreat to her room and asked Edward worriedly, "Is she going to be all right?" "Call Mr. Patrick later," Edward said. After slamming the door, Lucia stayed in her room, determined not to go down for lunch. Anyway, that's what she said. When it was noon, John knocked on the door. "Ma'am?" "Go away! I won't eat!" Lucia played with her cell phone and bellowed angrily at the door. "But ma'am, it's time for lunch. You're going to be hungry sometime." I'd rather starve to death, Lucia yelled. Edward walked over to the room. John said, She says she won't eat and rather die of starvation. Let's wait it out and see what happens, Edward said. About an hour after the typical lunchtime, Lucia's stomach started to growl. Endure it. You're not hungry. How long has it been? Lucia said viciously to her stomach. She continued to play her game, hoping to numb her senses with the game. The butler outside was also worried. It's not good not to eat. Edward could only call Dalen. Mr. Patrick, Lucia, madam, is not eating. She's that angry? Dalen asked. She said, She won't eat until you allow her to leave the mansion, said Edward. Dalen looked at his watch with a dark glint in his eyes. She won't be able to hold out for long. All of you go outside and put the food in the kitchen, Dalen said. Yes, Edward agreed. Edward hung up the phone and instructed the servants to go out and fix lunch. Once a person is hungry, their limbs become inflexible. Lucia couldn't even keep playing the game. She started to yell at her phone out of hunger and flung it to one side. Lucia knew there was a problem with her technique, but this was not all for Dalen. Her stomach rumbled again. When she stood up, Lucia felt dizzy. Should she sneak out to take a look at the kitchen? Lucia quietly opened the door and tiptoed out. It was quiet. When she went downstairs, she did not see a single person. Where did Edward and John go? The mansion was so big, there was always work to be done. Lucia seemed to be walking around the hall aimlessly, but in reality her eyes were darting around. Then she drifted to the dining room, looked inside. Not only were there no servants, there weren't even dishes on the dining table. Dalen was bad, and so were his people. That's how it came about. After passing through the dining room, Lucia entered the kitchen. The first thing she saw was the pots of vegetables on the azure stone countertop that hadn't been cleared away yet. A fragrant smell assaulted her nostrils. Lucia swallowed her saliva. She quickly took a bite from the bowl. It was delicious. Lucia picked up a fork and picked up her plate to eat. She ate a few mouthfuls before drinking the soup. It was still warm. When the delicious food entered her stomach, she felt extremely satisfied. As she ate, she took precautions. She made up her mind. If anyone were to enter, she would tell them to look for the butler. After eating enough, Lucia wiped her mouth and wiped away the evidence before returning to her room. She passed through the main hall, went upstairs, and entered her room. She was proud that she was able to accomplish all of this in one go without anyone noticing. When Edward and John entered the kitchen, they saw the empty bowls. Pour out the rest, Edward instructed. Seems like Mr. Patrick understands Miss Lucia very well, John said. Just follow Mr. Patrick's instructions. Edward nodded and said. The kitchen had just been cleaned up when Lucia appeared. Mom, do you want anything? Edward asked. Do you not even care if I starve? Lucia asked. Edward and John didn't say anything as they looked at her seriously. What are you looking at? If you don't want me to starve to death, then hurry up and let me out. Lucia was overbearing. Let me tell you, if I starve to death, Dalen will blame you for it. Therefore, for the sake of your future, you should let me go. If Dalen blames you, just say that I sneaked out. I will never betray any of you. What do you say? Edward and John remained indifferent. Lucia's inner acting skills began to explode. She used her hands to hold her stomach and leaned against the wall, pretending as if she would collapse at any moment. My stomach is hurting from being so hungry, Lucia moaned. Initially, John saw that something was wrong and was prepared to help her up. However, after hearing Lucia's first sentence, he stopped. It really hurts. Is my stomach eating itself? Perforated? Or a gastric ulcer that won't... It can't be terminal illness, right? Lucia squinted one eye and saw that the two stewards were unmoved. She continued to work hard, wailing and curling her lips. Oh, God, I'm only 20 years old. The heavens are jealous of such a talent. Dalen, I feel very wronged right now. No one cares if my body is falling apart. Dalen, my stomach is hurting. Am I going to die soon? Can you come back and take a last look at me?
Yes, came a low voice from behind her.
Episode 61, Another Punishment. Lucia's heart skipped a beat as the cold voice pierced through her ears, as if on cue. Sometimes she couldn't understand what this feeling was. Was she scared of Dalen or excited to have him around again? She slowly turned her head to find an exquisite-looking Dalen, smirking back at her with his flirtatious eyes, darting a salacious look at her. Even though he was leaning lazily against the wall, his tall and straight body had a strong aura. He was looking at her with interest. His black eyes shone with a cold light. Lucia stiffened for a few seconds, straightened her posture, and pulled her mind out of Dalen's toxic seduction to deal with him practically. It was as if his presence had some kind of voodoo effect on her. Lucia stopped being Lucia around Dalen. My stomach doesn't hurt anymore. I think I'll head back to my room. Before Lucia could escape herself out of Dalen's longing gaze, he cleared his throat before asking, "Did you finish what I asked you to finish?" Lucia instantly froze. She looked at Dalen. "There's still a little bit more. I'll finish it right away." Lucia ran into the room as soon as she finished her sentence. It was as if Dalen wanted to punish Lucia for keeping him away from herself for so long. He had not wanted anything in his life more than the way he wanted to get down and dirty with Lucia. He was being driven by this strangely promiscuous feeling for her. Dalen had swindled Lucia into believing that if she wrote 5 good things about him, he might consider trying to be a little more considerate towards her. Lucia hated to bargain for her freedom, but she knew she had welcomed crazy into her life the day she bride-swapped herself to get married to Axel, but God clearly had other plans for her. How was she expected to write 5 good things about the man who so effortlessly brought out the naughtiest in her? Dalen followed Lucia into her room to look at her work so far. Lucia tried to hide the contents of her work, but Dalen was swift enough to grab hold of the sheet of paper before Lucia could put it away. A dubious smile ran across his face as he read Lucia's work so far.
Number 1. He is so handsome. Not handsome the usual way, but in a very crude way. Number 2. He makes my heart beat 100 times faster every time.
I told you I hadn't finished yet. Lucia snatched the sheet of paper back from Dalen's hands.
Why did you strike out, "He makes my heart beat 100 times faster every time"? Do I really make your heart flutter with excitement? Does that mean that you are attracted to me?
Dalen continued teasing Lucia. Lucia's face flushed with embarrassment as she attempted to change the subject and, taking advantage of Dalen's cocky mood, requested him, "Dalen, can I please go back to school? I've missed 1 day already. I'll do whatever you ask me to. Obviously, it should be under the context of our deal." Dalen's face sparked up at Lucia's last statement. It was as if he just had a very remarkable idea. This look worried Lucia. She could suspect he wasn't going to go easy on her. It was too late for her now, though.
"Follow me to my room. And check your closet. I ordered some new additions. Feel free to put on any one of them before showing up."
Dalen walked out with a cloud of tyranny hovering above his head. Lucia hurriedly ran towards her closet to see a fresh stand of sexy lingerie displayed for Lucia to choose from. Lucia couldn't help hiding her embarrassment. The thought of Edward, Spencer, and John all being aware of their boss's intentions for her was nightmaringly embarrassing for Lucia. What does he think of himself? How can he even think that I'd fall for his lustful wishes? Lucia storms over to Dalen's room and gets her frustration out on him.
"The choice is yours. Either wear one of those clothes I've arranged for you and then come talk to me here. Or go back to your room and sulk about never seeing your school again. As promised, I remember our deal very well,"
Dalen stated matter-of-factly. Lucia slowly turned around to go back to her room, feeling lost and helpless.
She continued walking to her closet, picked up a pair of soft pink lingerie set, changed into them, covered herself up with a robe, and walked back to Dalen's room. "I'm here. Tell me what I need to do next." Dalen turned back to look at Lucia. She had a crushed expression on her face. "Close the door behind you and take off your robe," Dalen instructed. Episode 62, A Car Accident. Lucia took a deep breath. "Dalen, listen, I know this is about Axel. I know you were only punishing me because you got jealous seeing me get out of that car with Axel. But trust me, him and I bumped into each other at the store only. He'd come shopping there with Victoria. If you don't trust me, you can check with Victoria yourself. In fact, she was the one who didn't want to travel in the same car as me and ended up taking a cab back home. That's why I had to tag along Axel all alone." Lucia continued to explain herself for no reason at all. Dalen registered the information relayed on by Lucia, cleared his throat, and continued, "Do as I say. I've heard enough." In the end, she undid the belt on her robe as she freed the two corners of the robe open. Her face was bright red, standing in such a vulnerable state in front of Dalen. After sliding the robe off her body, Lucia dropped it at the bottom of her legs. Dalen started to inch closer to Lucia as she stood still at her place, with her insides juxtaposing her calm exterior. Dalen kept taking smaller steps closer to her, as if trying to seduce her with every step he took. Lucia was unmoved. Dalen was standing an inch away from Lucia when he slowly moved his right leg between Lucia's legs and circled its way to one edge of the robe curled up in Lucia's feet, before tugging it away from between them. Lucia felt every nerve on her body shudder. She could feel goosebumps on her skin. Dalen immediately took a step back and looked at Lucia's semi-naked body with a hungry look in his eyes. Lucia missed the feel of his warm breath on her bare shoulders. It was as if she was getting hypnotized by his lust for her. She liked being wanted by him. Dalen's eyes squinted, making him look even more dangerous. Lucia felt that Dalen's gaze was like a hand. It actually touched her skin and stripped her completely naked. The bashful blush grew more prominent. "Okay, now talk to me." Dalen tried to suppress the desire in his voice. "What?" Lucia blurted out, totally thrown off by Dalen's words. "I said talk to me. I want to know more about Lucia. You are, after all, my wife, and I have a right to get to know my wife better," explained Dalen. Lucia knew Dalen better than that. He was trying to tease her. That was his way of punishing Lucia for making him feel betrayed. That pair of eagle-like black eyes were captivating. It was like he refused to take his gaze away from her, no matter how much she shifted uncomfortably at her place. Dalen then continued to move around Lucia, as if soaking in her appearance in its entirety. Dalen wanted to have a good look at Lucia's soft skin, glowing against the warm blue light of the room. She could feel his gaze shifting through her entire body. Her lips trembled when Dalen's gaze fell on them, continuing down to her neck. She couldn't help but gulp in anticipation. Lucia's eyes followed Dalen's gaze further down to her fuller breasts. She breathed in heavily to tempt him to make a move. "So, you were about to say something. What is it that you wish to do after your studies?" Dalen says, breaking the slowly building tension between the two of them. Lucia, as if suddenly caught off guard, replies, "Huh? Oh, that. Sorry, what did you ask again?" Dalen smiles softly. "You can't resist me, can you?" He takes a step forward towards her. "You want me to take you, don't you?" spoke up Lucia. "I want you to tell me what you wish me to do next." Dalen continues to reduce the little distance between them as he softly touches the small of her waist. His fingers start to go around in circles at her waist. Lucia feels a sudden tingling sensation take over her. This is the moment when she feels like giving in and fall apart in Dalen's strong embrace. Dalen stretches his hand out and lifts Lucia's lower jaw, holding her chin lightly. Warm and heavy, Lucia's lips part slightly. It wasn't that Lucia didn't resist, but she was too tired to resist, and her mind betrayed her by flashing back to the memories of her first kiss with Dalen. She was too tired to argue with her heart. She wanted him. At the Elrod house, Macy, who hadn't been to school recently, decided to stay home another day. After resting for a while, her bruised face had returned to its original shape. Still, it looked a little swollen. It was a daily task to study her face in the mirror. There was the sound of a car outside the window. Macy stood up and looked down from the window. It was her stepdad. Previously, Macy still had some expectations for this home, thinking that her stepdad was kind to her out of sincerity. However, she gradually realized that Lucia was his biological daughter and would always be his favorite. Even if he scolded her a little, it wouldn't change how he felt. Would he still favor her when it really mattered? This was her reality. The next morning, when Mr. Elrod got in the car, there was a driver in front, so he sat in the back seat. The door closed and the car left. Macy was still standing by the window, her eyes filled with tears threatening to spill over. "As long as I can make Lucia suffer, I'll be happy," she vowed. The car was on the main road, traveling at a steady speed, when suddenly the right wheel tilted and the tire flew out. The car was forced to the side of the road. Even if the driver tried his best to turn the steering wheel, he still couldn't control the car. In the university cafeteria, Lucia bit down on a piece of red braised pork and licked the sweet taste on the corner of her mouth. She was very satisfied. Cole sighed as he put down his fork. Looking at Lucia, who was eating with relish, he felt helpless. "It's delicious, huh?" asked Cole. "So delicious," Lucia agreed. "We could have gone out to eat at a fancy restaurant, though. Now that you're rich, how can you be so stingy? I can't figure it out." Cole shook his head and sighed. "Haven't you heard?" Lucia asked. "Heard what?" "The richer you are, the more stingy you are." Lucia smiled and continued to eat her meal. Cole became even more worried. "Don't insult me with your words. You've always been so stingy." Lucia kept looking down. "Didn't you say that you wanted to try and spend all the money on the card Dalen gave you? Why are you being stingy now then?" Cole asked. "Because I don't want to give him the satisfaction," said Lucia. Pfft. Cole shook his head in frustration. Lucia didn't want to admit that she was afraid of how excited Dalen got when she spent his money. At this moment, Lucia's cell phone rang. Lucia wiped her hands and took out her phone to take a look. She couldn't help but frown. "Who is it? Why aren't you accepting it?" "It's Macy." Lucia rolled her eyes. "Then don't answer it," said Cole. "If I don't accept, knowing her, she'll keep calling. How could I enjoy my food that way?" Lucia was more frustrated with each ring. Lucia answered the call. Just as she was about to ask something, she heard Macy's wails. This made Lucia worried. What's wrong? Even if she was crying, she shouldn't have called Lucia to cry at her, right?
"Father, Dad got into a car accident."
Macy could hardly get out the words. Lucia was stunned. "What did you say?"
"This morning, there was a car accident. Dad's been in the hospital all morning and he hasn't woken up yet. You should come to the hospital and see him."
After Macy finished her sentence, she started to sob uncontrollably. Lucia's blood ran cold. The phone fell from her hand and onto the table with a clatter. Cole was shocked by Lucia's pale face. "What happened? Lucia?" "What?" Lucia recovered from her shock and looked at Cole in a daze. She was at a loss. "What's wrong with you? Are you all right?" Cole asked again. I have something to take care of. I'll see you later." Lucia stood up and ran. "Lucia!" Cole hurriedly called out to her, but Lucia acted as if she didn't hear anything. Lucia took a taxi straight to the hospital.
Lucia was hysterical on her way to the hospital. She was unable to think straight. Halfway to the hospital, her cab passes a large supermarket when Lucia suddenly screams, "Stop the car!"
Down here? Didn't you say you want to be dropped off at the hospital?
The driver was confused. "Here," Lucia confirmed. She paid and got out of the car. She then walked toward the supermarket. "I think I should buy something for Dad. Isn't that something people usually do? How rude would it look to walk into the hospital empty-handed?" Lucia's mind was trying to avoid thinking about the worst. She didn't want to even think about something as horrific as losing her father. She knew she claimed that she hated him and all, but to be truthful, she secretly just pined for his attention. She missed those times when he was just her dad and not someone else's stepfather or husband. She surely didn't want to let go of him. This was her way of coping with the news. She wasn't ready to face her dad in the hospital just yet. After entering the hospital, Lucia started to walk around the shelves, looking at all the options. After seeing the candy, Lucia checked her bag for her wallet. It wasn't there. She checked her pockets and could only find Dalen's credit card. She didn't want to use Dalen's card, so she looked around to see that no one was paying attention to her, and quickly stuffed some candy bars into her backpack. After stuffing a few of them into her bag, she walked out with her head lowered, as if nothing had happened. However, Lucia was stopped. Episode 63, You Lied to Me.
Is there something in your backpack that you'd like to pay for?
The supermarket manager asked. Behind him were two other security guards. Nope, Lucia denied.
No. Do we need to search your bag? We'll know immediately if you're lying.
After the supervisor said this, he winked at the security guard. The security guard stepped forward and was about to pull Lucia's shoulder bag. Lucia's face was filled with panic as she retreated. She leaned on the shelves to prevent them from taking the shoulder bag.
Please cooperate with us, the security guard said.
I didn't steal anything, so what right do you have to search my bag? Lucia had an uneasy look on her face. You were violating my privacy, she yelled, trying to make a scene. Other shoppers noticed, and onlookers quickly gathered to see what was going on. Someone else said to Lucia, If you didn't take anything, then you should just let them have a look. Another person said,
How can you just casually accuse her? It's an insult. This woman is obviously distressed. She doesn't look like someone who would steal things. You're accusing the wrong person.
Lucia stood there without making a sound. She still did not show them the shoulder bag. Across town, Dalen was holding a high-level meeting at the Dietrich group. Spencer barged in and whispered something into Dalen's ear. Dalen's expression immediately changed, causing everyone to hold their breath. Dalen rushed out. The supermarket was in a stalemate. Lucia refused to let him search her, and they couldn't force a search, but they didn't let her go. The supervisor walked in front of Lucia and said,
If you don't cooperate, we'll call the police. Of course, whether or not we call the police, if you did steal something, you will not escape the law. You're young, but that won't make a difference.
I didn't take anything. I really didn't take anything. Lucia's eyes were filled with tears. She was trembling nonstop. Both of her hands were tightly holding onto the bag. In short, she refused to cooperate. The person in charge had lost his patience and ordered the security guards to grab Lucia and snatch the bag from her. The security guard immediately stepped forward and grabbed her with one hand, ready to pull the bag from her body. Lucia was so anxious that she was struggling. Don't take my things! At this critical moment, a low voice shouted,
Don't you dare touch her!
The security guards were so shocked that they stopped moving. Lucia turned her head in disbelief, seeing Dalen's timely appearance. When Dalen looked over, Lucia felt as if her last shred of dignity had been destroyed. Her face flushed red, and tears started rolling down silently. Then she pushed away the security guards in front of her with all her might, turned around and ran. Dalen frowned. Come on, Lucia. With that, he chased after Lucia. Lucia struggled to run on the main road.
She hardly heard the sound of the car's blasting horns. Right now, she only had one thought, and that was not to let those people catch her. Don't let anyone find out she really stole something. She kept running forward and left the main road, headed towards a nearby alley. Just as she entered, she felt someone grab her arm, and her entire body was pulled back. Lucia bumped into a firm chest, raised her head, and saw Dalen's face, which was full of confusion. Dalen's heart tightened because of the tears on Lucia's face, and the grip in his hands tightened, holding Lucia close to him. Ugh! Lucia shook her shoulders, and Dalen immediately let go. As soon as she was free, Lucia retreated. Her back was pressed against the wall, still clutching the shoulder bag tightly. No one could see she had stolen, especially Dalen. Are you going to demand to search for my shoulder bag like them? There's nothing inside. I didn't take anything. Lucia's voice was hoarse from crying. However, her watery eyes stared at Dalen, who was not far away, with caution. If you dare touch my bag, I will never forgive you, she vowed. Lucia's shoulder bag was pressed against the wall. It really didn't look like there was anything inside. Your father is awake, Dalen said. Lucia froze on the spot, the weariness in her eyes instantly disappearing. What did you say? She said, her voice cracking with emotion. I'll take you to the hospital to see him right now, Dalen said. Is my father really awake? Is everything all right? Lucia could not believe it. Macy had said it was really serious. You're lying to me, right? You're trying to trick me into giving you my bag, right? That must be it. Why are you doing this to me? I don't want you to care. I don't want to see you. Lucia's legs gave out and she started to slide down the wall. Dalen frowned and went forward to catch Lucia, but she turned and ran. However, she couldn't escape Dalen's speed. Let me go! Let me go! Dalen! Even while Lucia was struggling, she was still protecting her shoulder bag as if it was something more important than life. Dalen's eyes darkened. He steadied her against the wall. Lucia took a deep breath and leaned her head into Dalen's chest, letting herself cry. When she finally composed herself, she looked up into Dalen's eyes. There was so much concern in his eyes. It almost convinced her that Dalen cared about her, and that was enough. Lucia only felt herself lifting her face to his. Dalen immediately accepted the invitation. Dalen pressed his lips to hers, softly at first. He could taste the salt from her tears. Then Lucia wrapped her arms tightly around his neck, and Dalen deepened the kiss. Dalen's intensity made her lose focus. The oxygen thinned. If it wasn't for Dalen's firm arms around her, Lucia would have slipped to the ground. All of her anger melted away. Dalen had come to help her. He cares about her. Only when Lucia felt that she was about to die in this intense kiss did Dalen slowly let her go. As soon as she was released, Lucia began to pant. She tried to take deep, slow breaths. Her face was flushed, and her long eyelashes hung lifelessly. I'll take you to the hospital, Dalen whispered. You're not lying to me, are you? Lucia looked up, her eyes filled with uneasiness. No. As long as I'm here, he will be safe and sound, Dalen promised. Dalen wondered if this change in Dalen was too good to be true. Dalen had become Lucia's only hope of survival, something more important than the stolen items in her bag. She could only hold on to him tightly. It was like grabbing onto hope. She still couldn't trust him, but she had to believe in him. Dalen didn't say anything else. He simply bent down, lifted her up, and carried her out of the alley. His car was parked on the main road. Spencer opened the door for them and then got in the driver's seat and drove straight to the hospital. The closer they got to the ward, the more uneasy Lucia became. Hearing Dalen's words was one thing, but she couldn't relax until she saw her dad with her own eyes. There was always an unknown panic. The door to her father's room was open. He was lying on the bed with his eyes closed, and his face was so pale that it was unimaginable. You lied to me! Why did you tell me that my father was awake? Did you trick me into coming here just to see me fall apart?
Lucia turned around and asked Dalen furiously. Episode 64, A Lifetime of Pain. Before Dalen could say anything, a nurse came over. "The patient is resting. Don't make too much noise." Lucia looked at the nurse blankly. Before she could cry, she asked, "What do you mean? My dad is resting. Was he awake? Or is he still unconscious?" "The patient is in stable condition. After the anesthesia, he woke up, but fell asleep again soon after due to physical exhaustion." The nurse turned and left. So Dalen didn't lie to her. Her dad really did wake up. She suddenly felt embarrassed and guilty. "Sorry, I didn't mean to throw a tantrum at you. Lucia didn't know what to say at that moment. She was embarrassed and uneasy. "What did you say? I didn't hear it. Can you say it again, please?" Dalen teased, staring at Lucia's bashful expression with his deep gaze. Even the way she apologized was different, so much lovelier than normal people. "Let me tell you, don't push it. I've already said sorry. I won't say it a second time." Lucia's face was red. As they were talking, they heard some noises coming from the doorway. Lucia was startled and thought her dad had woken up. Turning around, she saw that it was Barbara. Barbara walked out of the bathroom and started pouring hot water onto a towel. Then she walked to her husband's side and used the hot towel to wipe his hands and his face. It was a gentle action, one that only couples with deep feelings for each other could do. Seeing this, Lucia didn't know what to think. She had never liked Barbara. It was mainly because Barbara was snobbish and pretentious. But what was she doing now? Did she really love her dad after all? After Barbara finished, she turned around and saw Lucia and Dalen. She put down the towel in her hand and walked towards them, her expression immediately becoming cautious. She forced a smile and greeted, "Mr. Patrick, hello." Dalen was expressionless and had no response. Barbara turned her gaze to Lucia and said, "Since you're here, go in and see your father. He just barely fell asleep. It will probably take an hour or two to wake up. Fortunately, he is fine. It wasn't too serious of an accident." "Since he's fine, then I don't need to go in." Lucia's expression was completely different from her earlier worry. Dalen's sharp gaze fell on Lucia's face, deep and quiet. "Do they know what happened?" Lucia asked. "The police are already involved in this matter, and so far there's no news. I asked your dad's driver, and he said it was a car accident caused by a tire explosion. He said that he had failed to take the car out for maintenance last month, which resulted in the accident. Your father's lucky. Otherwise—" Barbara's voice cracked with emotion, and she couldn't continue. When Lucia saw her expression, she could tell Barbara was genuinely upset. Dalen looked over at Barbara and said, "Since he's fine now, I won't stay here any longer. Please take care of him." "Of course I will," Barbara said, sounding slightly offended. "He and I are husband and wife. He is my husband. That is only right. I'll do whatever I have to do." Lucia didn't say anything as she turned around and left. Lucia got in the car and closed the door, cutting off any outside voices. "Dalen, I keep having this feeling that someone tampered with that car's tires. My dad's social circle was quite wide as well. Maybe someone wanted to cause trouble or send some kind of message." "Have you thought about the wife and daughter?" Dalen's voice was low and intimidating. "You mean Barbara and Macy?" Lucia asked, incredulous. "I don't know. I just got a weird vibe in the hospital room," Dalen said. Dalen had a pair of sharp eyes that could see through everything. There was no place for anyone to hide. Not long after Dalen and Lucia left the hospital, Macy entered the ward and sat on the sofa, staring at her unconscious stepdad without moving at all. "What are you staring at?" Barbara asked. "I did it," she said simply. "What did you say?" Barbara didn't seem to understand. "I said I caused his car accident." Macy looked fearlessly at her mother. It frightened Barbara quite a bit. She stepped forward and pulled Macy away, pulling her out of the private room and into a secluded place.
What did you just say to me? Are you crazy? Barbara asked, panic starting to fill her voice. I hate him. I hate him for treating Lucia so much better than me. I hate him for giving the best to Lucia no matter what. I also like Dalen and he refuses to help me, Macy said as she lost control of her emotions. With that, she started to cry. Dalen slapped my face for Lucia. How can I let her off easy? If Mr. Elrod dies, Lucia will suffer for the rest of her life. Macy's eyes were wet, but dangerous. I say, what should I even say to you? You should have at least discussed this with me before you did it. If something happens to you, what would I do? Barbara said in a low voice. She was afraid of being overheard by someone, and she was both anxious and distressed by her daughter. Barbara did not immediately advise her daughter about what she should or should not do. She just felt that they had to be careful. I was careful. I will definitely succeed, and they will not find out, Macy said with confidence. Lucia is not easy to fool, and there's Dalen now, too. If Lucia finds out, then Dalen won't let you off. Do you understand? Barbara replied. I don't care. Mom, how can I step aside and let Lucia live the life I've always wanted? Macy cried. Barbara consoled her by wiping away her tears. I know. Since you've already done it, you might as well follow through. But promise me, if there's a next time, you must tell me. At least I can help you.
Episode 65, Trust Me. Macy and Barbara returned to Mr. Elrod's room. He was stable now, so the burden on Macy's heart was lightened, but she hated the fact that her mother was now aware about the darkness in her heart. Although her previous intense reaction of trying to kill her stepdad seemed to have betrayed her heart too, she couldn't help but feel bad about it. This was also something that she couldn't hide. On the drive back to the mansion, Lucia looked at Dalen from time to time. The profile of the face was like a silhouette, clear and hard. It was manly. Have you eaten? Lucia asked. Nope, said Dalen. Why don't I treat you to a meal? Said Lucia. Dalen's face turned, his eyes slightly narrowed, hiding a teasing light. You might as well treat me to something else, he said with a grin. What do you want? Just say the word. It's rare for me to be this generous, but today I'll give you whatever you want. Lucia's face was raised as she said this, proud that she was being the bigger person. There was also a little pride and cuteness that drove Dalen crazy. You. Dalen's low voice said one word. Me? What about me? Lucia was stunned for a moment. It took her 3 seconds to realize what was going on, and her face immediately flushed. Hey, what are you talking about? A smile appeared on Dalen's face. It was as if he was playing a joke on her. Can I ask you a question? Lucia said in despair. What? Is this the only thing men think about? Can't you think of something else for just a moment? Lucia asked innocently. What else do you want to know about men's minds? Dalen asked. Lucia already understood how possessive Dalen was. What I'm trying to ask is that what's going on in your head every day? Or is this a common ailment of all men? For someone like me who has never been in a relationship before, I'm very curious. Dalen raised his hand and cupped Lucia's cheek, moving her face until she looked into his eyes. If you're curious, you can start with me, he said, speaking in a low voice. Lucia's face reddened as she shifted backwards. Do you want to eat or not? If not, then I'll go meet Cole instead. He might be worried as I left in such a hurry, she said, trying to change the subject. I want to eat, Dalen said, not taking his eyes off of her. Lucia faced the side window. Her face was flushed. It was as if he had a high fever and needed the glass to cool down. Her heart was pounding, and she was unable to calm it down even after a long time. What kind of reaction was this? They didn't even need Dalen to choose a place to eat. the driver automatically took them to Dalen's usual expensive place. Lucia's eyes lit up the moment she got out of the car because she saw a little dog sneaking out from who knows where. The little dog was as white as a snowball. Very cute. Lucia couldn't control herself for a moment, so she went forward to pet the puppy before picking it up in her arms. So cute! Dalen's irrefutable voice sounded. Put it down. Why? Let me hold it for a moment. It's so cute. Lucia hugged the dog tightly, refusing to let go. We're in public, Dalen said as a matter of fact. Lucia stopped and sadly put the dog down. After entering the restaurant, the waiter showed them to Dalen's usual private box. Lucia sat down on a chair, making sure to make a loud scraping noise as she scooted the chair under the table. Lucia purposely let Dalen know how unconvinced she was at the moment. However, Dalen didn't seem to notice the big commotion she had just made. He sat down on the chair as if nothing had happened. At this very moment, Lucia felt like she had nothing left to live for. Was he teasing her? He refused to let her see her friends, and now he wouldn't even let her pet a dog. To say he was possessive was simply underestimating him. Do you know what couples pay the most attention to? Lucia asked. Are you trying to admit your feelings? Although it's a little late to admit now, I'll still accept it. Dalen boasted shamelessly. Is being forced to marry the same as love? Lucia asked. Are you sure that was a forced marriage? From where I'm looking, didn't you knock out the woman I was supposed to marry and chose to stand on the aisle opposite me by yourself? Dalen countered. Lucia sighed helplessly. It might have been her fault to begin with. I think we should trust each other, Lucia said, breaking the silence. Oh, you don't trust me? Dalen asked. How could I? Even though I'm only 20 right now, that doesn't mean I don't know anything, Lucia said. Dalen didn't say anything. He fiddled with the lighter in his hand and didn't light up his cigarette. He seemed to be deep in thought about Lucia's words. At this moment, the waitress came in. The moment she saw Dalen, her face turned red with embarrassment, as if she was in love with him. Even as Lucia ordered the dishes, the waiter looked at Dalen from time to time. Dalen raised his long and narrow black eyes and looked at the attractive waitress. The smile on the waitress's face became even more radiant. Lucia saw this, of course. What were these two doing? Did they think she didn't exist? That she was invisible? There was a small fire burning in her heart. After ordering the dishes, the waitress still looked reluctant to leave. After the waitress finally left, the room was filled with tension. What do you think of that waitress? Lucia asked casually. She's beautiful, Dalen responded easily. This person, how could he act like this after everything? Seems like your eyesight isn't good enough. Lucia poked at the plate with her fork. Dalen looked at her actions and didn't say anything. Lucia's slender figure was reflected in his black eyes. Dalen, are you trying to find a mistress? Lucia finally asked. Nope, Dalen said. No? Do you think I'm blind? When the two of you were looking at each other, I felt like I didn't exist. Lucia was on the verge of frustrated tears. Did you just say that trust is what's most important between husband and wife? Dalen asked. For a moment, Lucia was speechless. She had said those words just now. If she refuted them, wouldn't that be slapping her own face? If she did not refute, she would have to accept the fact that Dalen and that waitress were really eyeing each other. Lucia knew that Dalen did it on purpose. The feeling of admitting defeat was truly heartbreaking. However, she absolutely would not admit defeat. It's all right. If you want to look for it, I have no objections. In any case, if you want to go around with other women, it will be that much easier to file for divorce. So, you can do what you like, Lucia said indifferently. The meaning behind her words was that if Dalen wanted to keep her, he must be loyal to the end. If not, then she would leave. She had to remind Dalen what he was risking. Episode 66, Where Did This Rat Come From? I can do what I like, but you can't, Dalen declared calmly. Lucia was pissed off and almost slammed her fist on the table and yelled at him. You are too overbearing. You can't be saved. Why? Before Lucia could finish her sentence, Dalen's tall body was already leaning across the table. His shadow covered her face. Her words caught in her throat. That's what I like to do the most. After Dalen said this, he tilted Lucia's chin up toward him and softly kissed Lucia's mouth. Lucia was frozen in shock. The feeling of her heart hitting the ground came again. Unable to bear it any longer, she lowered her head and said with a voice as soft as a mosquito's buzz, what are you talking about? After lunch, Lucia had to go meet Cole regarding her missed classes while she was at the hospital. Dalen escorted her in his car. After getting out of the car, Lucia said nothing and just ran away. What else did she and Dalen have to say? He was always saying things that people didn't know how to respond to. Inside the cafe, Cole was waiting impatiently for Lucia, a hint of worry evident on his face. Upon seeing Lucia walking in, he hurriedly stood up and ran forward. Are you all right? I'm fine. Lucia dropped her shoulder bag and sat down. Are you seriously all right? You scared me to death, Cole said, remembering Lucia's panicked phone call with Macy. My dad had a car accident, Lucia said calmly. Is he okay? Cole asked in shock. He's fine. There's no longer any danger to his life. Cole touched his chest. Okay, good. Hey, this is the phone you dropped in the cafeteria back at the school. Lucia took the phone and was slightly lost in thought. Did you call Dalen? That's right. I couldn't get in touch with you. Then I looked at his number in your phone and directly called. However, it was not answered by Dalen. It seemed to be his bodyguard. Cole recalled the voice. It must have been Spencer, Lucia said. Dalen would sometimes give his phone to Spencer, so it wasn't abnormal for him to answer it. Later, Lucia excused herself to the washroom. She sat down on the toilet seat in a booth as she recalled what happened back at the supermarket. She sighed heavily with her head lowered in disappointment. Lucia had stolen things before, during the college entrance exam. She was too nervous, afraid that she would fail the exam and make her father feel disappointed in her. But it wasn't a habit of hers. It was more of a coping mechanism. Wrong, though. Even if Dalen didn't look, he definitely knew that there was something wrong with her backpack. However, he didn't check it out. Was it because he believed that she was innocent, or did he already see through her? Dalen must have come to find her after receiving Cole's call. Then, when he found her at the supermarket, he could not stay out of everything that was happening inside. Did Dalen not really care about her character? How many people would tolerate their wives stealing from others? Lucia wondered, if she told Dalen what she did, would he divorce her? That way, she wouldn't have to figure out how to leave him. However, how much courage would it take to show him a side of her that she herself wasn't very proud of? Lucia had been thinking about this all day. In the end, she didn't tell Dalen about it when she went back. There was an unusual silence at the dining table. After dinner, she hurried back to her room. It was as if she was afraid she would say it out loud. Shouldn't she say? Could she really hide it? Lucia was in the room feeling very upset. The knock on the door frightened her into sitting down on the sofa. Who is it? She called. It's me. It was John. Lucia's tense nerves relaxed. After calming down, she knew that the person outside was definitely not Dalen, who never knocked when he entered her room. After John came in, he placed all kinds of snacks and fruits on a tray in her hands. It looked tempting and delicious. Why are you bringing me this food? Lucia asked. Usually, Edward stopped preparing food after dinner because he thought it wasn't good to eat too much at night. This was instructed by Mr. Patrick. He told me that you did not eat much for dinner. All right. Lucia feebly picked up a delicate piece of cake and then put it down. John looked at her and asked, Don't you like it? If you want something else to eat, I'll bring you something different. In the past, when Lucia saw food, Even if her stomach was full, she would still forcefully stuff a few mouthfuls into her mouth. She rarely lost her appetite. But today, she was not interested in these things at all. No need. Lucia thought for a moment, then raised her head and looked at John with sparkling eyes. What do you think Dalen hates the most? John was stunned by the question. For a moment, he didn't know how to answer, but it seemed like Lucia was troubled by such a question. If he said that he didn't know, would she continue to bug him about it? Lucia noticed the discomfort on John's face. With an expression of understanding, Lucia continued, I shouldn't have asked that question. Dalen is a domineering individual, so he must not have to deal with anything he doesn't like. John still stayed silent. This is simply the most difficult problem in human nature to solve, Lucia said as she rubbed her chin, looking like an old scholar. John cleared his throat and said, Ma'am, you should take your time to eat. I'll be leaving. Take all of it back. I won't eat, Lucia said. You'll be hungry later tonight, John argued. No, take it. Lucia was adamant. With a doubtful expression, John took the food away. But Lucia had overestimated herself. Not long after John took the pastries and left, she started to regret her decision. She didn't want to eat that food, but her stomach had to eat something. It was growling and grumbling. Lucia didn't dare to stay up late and feed the hunger even more, so she decided to go to bed after showering. You don't get hungry when you sleep. Thus, Lucia took a bath, and when she was done, she went to bed. Sleeping had always been difficult for Lucia, though. Now she had to endure the hunger, and it was getting worse. Sleep, sleep, 1 sheep, 2 sheep, 3 sheep, 4 sheep, 50 sheep, 51 sheep, 52 sheep, 96 sheep, 98 sheep, 99 sheep, 100 sheep. After counting to 100 sheep, Lucia bounced up from the bed. She just had to go find something to eat. In the kitchen, there were pastries, delicacies, and bright fruits. Just when Lucia was stuffing the pastries into her mouth, where did this little mouse come from? A low, mocking voice addressed her from the doorway. Lucia was shocked and immediately looked around. Mouse? Where is the mouse? Where is it? When she didn't see any mouse, she realized that something was wrong. When she turned around, she saw Dalen, who also appeared in the kitchen. His figure was so tall that it almost covered the whole kitchen's light. Episode 67, The Bad Guy. What a coincidence. You also can't sleep and came out to walk? Lucia said, trying to make it seem like she wasn't out looking for food. She was in the kitchen only because she couldn't sleep. Dalen's eyes were deep and dark. Lucia almost got lost in them. The tension was thick in the air, and Dalen started moving towards her. She had her back to the counter and had nowhere to move. But she didn't want to move. She let him come toward her. In the next moment, Dalen was in front of Lucia. Lucia didn't even have time to react before Dalen lifted her onto the counter. The cold granite on the back of her thighs made her shiver. Lucia groaned slightly and gathered the front of Dalen's shirt in her fists. She was breathing fast. What are you doing? This is the kitchen. Someone could come in at any time. How could he be so unbridled? They're all asleep. Dalen's voice was deep and faint. Lucia had a bad feeling about this. She was extremely nervous, but her body was also humming with desire. Lucia's entire face was blushing red. The more nervous she became, the hungrier her stomach felt. A rumbling sound came from her stomach. The redness on Lucia's face deepened, reaching below her neck. Dalen's gaze wavered slightly. He picked up a red cherry from the fruit plate beside him and placed it next to Lucia's pink lips. Open your mouth, he demanded quietly. Lucia hesitated. She felt even more bashful and uneasy. The pajamas she wore were long and silky. Sitting on the counter, the hem of her skirt was open, revealing her long, thin, white legs. Compared to Dalen's strong physique, she looked like a fragile glass doll. He looked more like a painting with a profound sense of beauty and fragrance. Or do you want me to feed you with my mouth? Dalen's voice was low and heavy. Lucia bit down on the cherry with a blush and swallowed it. Under Dalen's intense gaze, she chewed and swallowed it. The moment she finished eating, Dalen picked up the pastries and fed them to her. I can feed myself, Lucia protested, but Dalen didn't acknowledge her and continued. After the pastries were finished, he gave her some milk. From the beginning to the end, Dalen didn't let go of her for a moment. Are you full? Dalen asked. Before Lucia could say anything, he added, Eating too much will affect your sleep. Lucia didn't know if being too full would affect her sleep, but she deeply felt that hunger affected her sleep. After eating so much, she was no longer hungry. After Dalen finished his sentence, that faint, low voice seemed to enter her ears more easily than a sharp tone, striking her eardrums even deeper. The atmosphere became thick, rippling, scorching. When Dalen's face came towards her, Lucia felt that her heart was about to stop, and her breathing became heavy. Lucia knew that her body had lost the power to resist. His face moved so slowly, the anticipation of the kiss fogged her head. This was different from the intensity of the past. Lucia closed her eyes nervously, waiting. However, after 3 seconds, nothing happened. Lucia opened her eyes and saw Dalen looking at her with a wicked smile. His voice was low and hoarse. Are you waiting for me to kiss you? Then Dalen raised his hand and wiped off a crumb from the corner of her mouth. Lucia was stunned. Was all of his movement toward her just to wipe her mouth? She had thought that... Get out of my way! Lucia's face turned red and her ears redder. She angrily lifted her leg and kicked toward Dalen's crotch. Dalen dodged it. He frowned and said, Are you trying to destroy your lifetime of sexual bliss? Lucia jumped down from the counter. Destroying it is good, otherwise you would bully me day and night. I wasn't waiting for you to kiss me just now. I was just too lazy to look at you. After Lucia finished her sentence, she snorted and ran off. Dalen's mood improved, realizing that Lucia actually did want him to kiss her. Lucia went back to her room and slammed the door angrily. She had never been so frustrated in her life. Who wanted him to kiss her? After Lucia's rage tired her out, she weakly fell onto the bed, lying there like a turtle with her head tucked in. She blushed as she recalled the scene in the kitchen. She seemed to be really waiting for Dalen to kiss her. But that wasn't her intention, was it? She thought that Dalen was going to kiss her, but she just wanted to cooperate a bit. No, he's the bad guy. Bad guy. After going to the hospital with Dalen, Lucia didn't visit her father again. Every day she would go to school and return to the mansion. Lucia, are you sure you don't want to see your father? Cole asked one day after class. Why would I? He's fine now. Lucia looked out of the window uncomfortably. If you have nothing to do, you should at least go visit. He was in a car accident, after all. Naturally, I'm sure he wants you to go and see him, Cole said. I don't think so. Doesn't he still have Barbara and Macy? Maybe he'll recover faster if I don't go, Lucia said in a bad mood. Actually, what she said wasn't completely unreasonable, because every time she spoke to her father, no matter how calm she was in the beginning, it always ended badly. Cole laughed. You and your father are indeed a strange pair. Look at you. You're obviously so worried about losing your father, yet you're still so stubborn. Sometimes it's not a bad thing to give in. Lucia rolled her eyes. Surrender? I just don't want to argue with him. Cole did not forget the expression on her face when she found out about her dad's car accident in the cafeteria the other day. She was definitely frightened. How could she not care? Mr. Elrod was Lucia's only family. Lucia had been more absent-minded than usual during these last few days. If it wasn't her dad on her mind, what else could it be? Lucia was holding her cell phone under a big tree on campus. Her dad's number was on the screen, but she couldn't dial it. In the hospital, Mr. Elrod, who was resting on the bed, didn't seem to be happy that he escaped death. Dad? Dad? Mr. Elrod snapped back to reality and saw Macy's face. He adjusted his expression and asked, "What's wrong?" "What do you want for lunch? I'll buy it for you." Macy didn't show any displeasure that her stepdad ignored her so much. "Isn't there food in the hospital? I'll eat whatever you bring," Mr. Elrod said. "I know the food in the hospital definitely isn't as delectable as this food, especially made to fit your nutrient requirements," Macy countered. Mr. Elrod sighed and looked out the window. "If only Lucia was half as loyal and attentive as you." Macy's face cracked instantly. Was he mentioning Lucia on purpose? Although she was very unhappy inside, she covered it up. In the afternoon, Lucia finally decided to visit her father. She paced around the ward for about half an hour before she entered his room. Episode 68, I Know What I'm Doing. Mr. Elrod, who was on the sickbed, looked at his phone. When he saw the person who entered, the veins on his forehead began to twitch. "I asked the doctor, and he said you'd be discharged in a few days." "Seems like you've recovered quite well," Lucia said. After she finished, she looked at her father and did not say a word. Lucia saw the fruit on the table and said, "I'll peel some for you to eat." Then she took the fruit and the knife and began to cut. Her father's expression softened. However, he soon heard Lucia muttering, "Everyone says that your daughter will never leave you and always take care of you, but I don't think that's true." "You came here to anger me?" Her dad also started to suspect if Lucia would really always stay by his side. No. If I come to anger you, would I be peeling this fruit for you?" Lucia disagreed. Mr. Elrod tried his best to suppress his anger. After Lucia finished peeling the fruit, she saw that her father was still staring at his phone. She snatched it away. Then she stuffed the fruit into his hands. "Why are you staying on your phone so much? Eat!" Mr. Elrod looked at the fruit in his hand that was peeled like it was for a child. He felt that it was beneath him, but he ate it anyway. "Why not come home on Sunday? You've been practically living at school?" Mr. Elrod asked. "Yeah, well, where else would I live?" Lucia asked. "You're still with Dalen?" Just thinking about this gave him a headache. "Yes." Lucia was reluctant to bring up the topic. "You don't listen to what I say at all, do you? You know who Dalen is, so why are you dating him?" asked her dad. Lucia thought, what would his reaction be if she told her father that she was already married to Dalen? Forget it. He had just recovered, so it was better not to provoke him. "Do you like him?" continued her dad. "It can't be that he forced you to do this, right?" This was definitely her father. He knew her better than anyone and had guessed the truth. The latter half of the sentence hit the nail on the head. Wasn't she forced to do it? Furthermore, she was the one who came knocking on his door to beg for his help. I like him," Lucia said. Mr. Elrod's expression froze. "What the hell are you doing?" he whispered. All right, eat your fruit," Lucia said with her head down. "How can I eat it now? Even if I die, I won't be able to rest in peace," he almost shouted. Mr. Elrod was so angry that his face turned blue. "What's there to be angry about? Both Dalen and I are unmarried, so isn't this normal?" Lucia asked. "Then do you think he'll marry you?" said her father. Lucia silently thought in her heart, "We've already been married." "Even if he wants to marry me, I won't agree," she said. Mr. Elrod moved his hand and Lucia flinched. "Do you believe that I'll slap you?" Mr. Elrod asked. "Sure. Wait till you're better. Then we'll see," Lucia said. "Is it because I didn't teach you well that you have to do this?" Mr. Elrod still couldn't let go of the burden in his heart. Lucia was already 20 years old, so she should be past her rebellious period. He didn't want his daughter to be with a man like that. What's not good about Dalen? Every woman wants to date him. Lucia's words were true. There were a lot of women who wanted to marry Dalen. A man is not just his appearance. I know Dalen is a good person, but he is also very ambitious, and a man with too much ambition cannot give his heart to a woman. If you don't listen to me now, don't come and cry in front of me in the future, said Mr. Elrod. Lucia raised her head and looked at her father, who had a sad expression, and asked, "Are you afraid that I'll come back crying?" Mr. Elrod didn't say anything and stopped looking at her. "Don't worry. I cried in front of you years ago, but I've forgotten that feeling. Of course I wouldn't come crying to you. I know better than that now." Lucia lowered her head and said. Lucia's father felt bad as he listened to her words. He wanted to say something, but in the end he didn't. The atmosphere in the room was depressing. Lucia changed the topic. "What about Barbara and Macy? I haven't seen anyone since I got here." "Macy is at school. Her mother is at the company," her dad answered. Lucia nodded and said, "Then let me keep you company more." Mr. Elrod didn't say anything. Leaning against the headboard, he thought for a moment, then looked at Lucia and said, "When you don't have any classes anymore, come to the company for your internship." "So early?" Lucia asked. "Get familiar with the company as soon as possible." Mr. Elrod's expression was stern. In fact, he had his own plans. Lucia did not object. "Sure." This surprised Mr. Elrod. Lucia was so stubborn. Was it because of his car accident that she became obedient? "Dad, will you leave your wealth to Barbara and her daughter?" Lucia asked. Mr. Elrod had finally calmed down, but because of Lucia's words, his emotions flared up again. "Are you waiting for me to die already? Is my wealth all that you really care about?" Lucia flinched. "What are you saying?" Forget it. Forget it. Everything I say is wrong, so I'll just shut up." Lucia added on in a low voice, "The older you get, the harder it is to serve you." Mr. Elrod closed his eyes and tried to control his temper. Macy, who had been listening outside for a long time, left with an unhappy expression. After getting in the car, she called Barbara. "Don't come to the hospital to see Dad." "What's wrong with you? You were in the hospital? I was just about to go," Barbara said. "You won't believe what I just heard from Dad and Lucia outside the ward." "What did you hear?" "Dad says he wants Lucia to go to the company for an internship, but he never offered that to me, and they talked about the distribution of property. What did he mean? It couldn't be that he wanted Lucia to quickly take over the company, right? If that's the case, will we be cut off?" Macy said anxiously. "Don't worry, I'll take care of it." Barbara hung up the phone. Mr. Elrod only had his daughter. He wouldn't let the company fall into the hands of someone who planned things carefully. The company was his life's work. If he was really tricked by the mother and daughter pair, how sad would he be? Barbara still went to the hospital. When she saw Lucia, she had to also put on an act. Lucia left after a few pleasantries and some small talk. After getting in the cab, Lucia was ready to go back to her mansion. There were no classes in the afternoon anyway. Lucia's expression darkened slightly as she passed by the supermarket. Episode 69, Look Who's Back. But to Lucia's surprise, there was a police car parked outside the supermarket. Then she saw a woman being led out by the police. Lucia had a favorable impression of the girl from the looks of her face. What had she done? She watched the girl being put in the police car and being escorted away. Lucia got out of the car and asked a bystander, "What happened? Who was that woman?" "A thief," an onlooker answered. "She was stealing things in this supermarket and got caught. Tell me, how could a good-looking woman have such a problem?" At that time, she didn't admit it, but now she had called the police and confessed. So the police came and she was taken away. Lucia was completely dumbfounded. Then she turned and got back into the cab. If not for the fact that she had witnessed it with her own eyes, she would have thought it was arranged to ridicule her. It was like a satirical scene from some TV show. Lucia thought, Is this supermarket unlucky, or are people stealing more things now? Has being a thief become popular? Lucia returned to the mansion. Dalen had already returned. He sat down on the sofa in the hall, crossing his legs to show the quality of his long legs. He was watching TV. However, his face seemed somewhat gloomy. Dalen hadn't watched boxing since Lucia had come to the mansion. So why did he have such an expression? You came back rather early, Lucia asked in surprise. Didn't you say you didn't have any classes this afternoon? I've been waiting for you until now, Dalen said forcefully. Lucia froze. Her heart was beating uncontrollably. What are you waiting for me for? Look at you. Lucia looked down at herself. What's so good about her? It's not like she did anything special or even different. Come here and let me hug you, Dalen commanded. Lucia's face turned hot. This person was really... Lucia slowly walked over and Dalen wrapped his hands around her wrists. He pulled her down gently until she landed on Dalen's lap and was leaning against his chest, firm and tough, hot and scorching. Lucia's body trembled and her face became even redder and hotter. Didn't you ask for a hug? What are you doing? You are my woman. I can touch you however I like, Dalen said arrogantly. Of course, you can also touch me. You wish. I won't touch you. Lucia's face darkened. Just as she finished, the phone in Dalen's pocket vibrated. Dalen took it out, and when his gaze landed on the screen, his expression changed, and his eyes turned slightly cold. Lucia, who was nearby, noticed the obvious change. Then he said, I need to take this call. Lucia quickly stood up. Dalen went to answer the phone not far away. After picking up the call, Dalen did not say anything. It seemed like the other party was the one who was talking. Then Dalen ended the call with just 3 words. I got it. Dalen turned around and looked at Lucia. I have something to do. I'll be back. Then are you coming back to eat? Lucia felt that as his wife, it was fine to ask. Don't wait for me, Dalen answered. With that, he left. Lucia's expression was somewhat disdainful as she muttered, You waited for me here for the whole afternoon, and now when I'm finally here, you're already leaving. Psh. But Dalen left hurriedly, without answering Lucia's question. Dalen's car stopped in front of the police station. The receptionist rose to greet him as he strode in. Dalen walked to the interrogation room and opened the door. The moment the woman inside saw him, she immediately smiled happily. She stood up and walked to Dalen and threw herself into his arms. You actually came to save me. I missed you so much. Dalen didn't push away the woman in his arms. However, his face was cold. Why are you stealing again? Bianca looked up, and after her emotions had calmed down, she said, I'm sorry to disappoint you, but I can't control myself either. So I stole something. Why did you come back? Dalen's expression was dark. You didn't want me to come back? I got into town this morning. I wanted to find you, but I was afraid that you would be angry. I didn't know what to do, so I went to steal something. I knew this would get you to me, Bianca said guiltily. Dalen was silent. It was obvious that he was unhappy with this situation. Bianca looked at him with some unease and whispered, I haven't eaten since morning. Can you take me to eat? The money I gave you, even in the hands of someone as irresponsible as you, wouldn't have been possible to spend within 5 years, said Dalen. No, I didn't spend a single cent of the money you gave me. You know materials aren't important to me. What's important is... Bianca glanced at Dalen shyly before quickly lowering her gaze. The meaning could not be clearer. Lucia ate alone at night. After eating, she watched the scenery outside the mansion. Even the views are worth a lot of money. After returning to her room, Lucia took a shower. After showering, she leaned back on the bed and played with her cell phone. As she played, she thought about Dalen's expression when he answered the phone. Who called him? She had seen a string of numbers without any contact photo on Dalen's screen. However, Dalen seemed to know who it was. The next day, the morning news was covering the thief who was caught in the supermarket. Lucia did not have the habit of watching the news in the morning, but that didn't mean that others didn't watch. When Victoria got up that morning, she was busy fiddling with her plants. The television in the room was broadcasting news about a woman's theft. If it was any other news, Victoria wouldn't pay attention. However, something about the story caught her attention. She walked in front of the TV and watched. Jerica came in to wake Victoria up and saw the news that was being broadcasted. Seeing the woman, she pointed in surprise. "That woman! Is that Bianca? How could she go back to her old ways?" "Do you think Dalen knows?" Victoria hated Bianca. Of course, she hated any woman related to Dalen. She was extremely disgusted. I don't know," Jerica said. "He will. He used to be so nice to this woman, giving her whatever she wanted," Victoria spat. "But Mr. Patrick is married now," said Jerica. "Don't you think that Lucia and Bianca look alike?" Victoria said with a terrible expression. Jerica seemed to have understood what she meant. "Ma'am, do you mean to say that when Bianca left that year, Mr. Patrick went to find someone who looked similar to her? If Lucia was only a substitute, what will happen to her now that Bianca's back?" Victoria's face bloomed with a calculating smile. "I want to know, too. What exactly will he do?" "I feel that when Bianca and Lucia fight, Mr. Patrick will hate them both and chase them far away. Only you are worthy of being his bride," Jerica said. Episode 70, New Opportunities. Victoria didn't know how many of these factors were used to coax people, but she felt comfortable listening to them. Although she didn't want Bianca to be back, now that she was here, there would be a good show to watch. That day, Lucia ate lunch and went shopping with Cole. She had not expected to meet the woman from the news that morning, the thief. But there she was. She looked at Lucia as if she already knew her. This made Lucia feel a bit uncomfortable. Bianca examined Lucia from head to toe. They were wearing similar clothes. Lucia stared at the woman and thought strangely, "She's released pretty early. It hasn't even been 24 hours, right? It seems so serious at the time." "You look just like me," Bianca said when she noticed Lucia and was stunned for a moment. Lucia couldn't decide whether to laugh or not. "What do you mean, like you?" Lucia asked. Even if they looked similar, it was only because they wore similar clothes. It really didn't make any difference. "But you do look younger than me." Bianca seemed to have noticed the displeasure in Lucia's eyes as she said this. Lucia began to hate her 20 years old. "And so kind," Bianca giggled while covering her mouth. "You were at the supermarket yesterday. I saw everything. Didn't you get taken away by the police?" Lucia asked. Bianca felt slightly uncomfortable, but there was a hint of shyness within the discomfort. "Someone helped me." "Then the person who saved you really disregards the law," Lucia said contemptuously. "To me, he is a very powerful person. No one around here would dare to disobey him." When Bianca said this, her eyes were filled with love. Lucia felt goosebumps all over her body. After Bianca finished speaking, she left. Lucia watched as she disappeared in the distance, then turned to Cole and asked, "Tell me, if this woman isn't bragging, should I tell the truth what she said to Dalen? There's actually someone stronger than Dalen?" "She's definitely over-exaggerating," Cole said. "But if she's not, I'd really like to get to know him and make a friend," Lucia said. "I'm curious too," Cole said seriously. "Are you going to the hospital later? Should I come with you?" "You'd come? That'd be great." With a third person around, her dad might keep his temper a little cool. Lucia and Cole bought some food for her dad and carried to the hospital. Inside his room, Mr. Elrod was still alone. "Hello, Uncle Elrod," Cole called. Mr. Elrod was naturally a friend of Cole's. He smiled and nodded. "Hello." "Lucia said you were hospitalized. I wanted to come over with Lucia to see you. It looks like you've recovered quite a bit," said Cole. "Thank you for coming to see me. Take a seat," said Mr. Elrod. Lucia and Cole both sat down. Lucia asked, "Why are you alone again? Is Barbara very busy?" "I'm just sleeping here anyways. The company is busy, so I sent her to keep an eye on the work," Mr. Elrod said. "What's so important there? No matter how much you sleep, you can't be left alone here. She's not a proper wife." Lucia had a strong opinion of Barbara. "And are you a qualified daughter?" he snapped. "Touché," Lucia admitted. Mr. Elrod held his breath. Lucia looked at her father, who had turned silent, and thought of something and asked, "Dad, I met a woman before I came here. She looks pretty similar to me and to you." Mr. Elrod snapped his head up. "Why don't you say what you really mean? That you think she's my illegitimate daughter?" "I didn't say that," Lucia argued. Mr. Elrod looked at her and laughed. If not for the presence of an outsider, he would have immediately kicked her out. It was enough to give him a headache. "I'll be leaving the hospital tomorrow. Prepare for your internship at the company to start the day after tomorrow," Mr. Elrod said. Lucia's interest was piqued. "Dad, what position are you planning to give me? I don't need to go too high. I'll be satisfied with just a mere officer." "Officer? You'll have to work your way up from a staff member," Mr. Elrod scoffed. Lucia's face stiffened. "Then I wouldn't have to see Barbara every day?" "If you are stronger than her, then you don't need to," Mr. Elrod said. "No matter how amazing I am, I'm still just a small employee, right? Barbara will be pressuring me the whole time." Lucia was unhappy. This was too much of a scam. "Then are you going or not?" Mr. Elrod said. "Let's go, Cole," said Lucia. Leaving the hospital, Cole said, "It seems like your father's invitation for you to join his company is another way of making you suffer at our wife's hands. Congratulations." "Second wife," Lucia corrected Cole. Then she continued to put her arms around his shoulders and said, "Aren't good friends supposed to share good fortune and hard work together? You should do the internship with me." "Are you sure?" inquired Cole. "Let's just do it. We have nothing else to do anyway," said Lucia. "I'll think about it," Cole said in a proud tone. Actually, Cole knew Lucia's good intentions. They always had to go out for internships together. He might as well join Lucia's dad's company and learn from both their experiences. And that way they could watch each other's backs. It couldn't be better. Therefore, Cole accepted it. After arriving at the company the next day, he was assigned to start from the bottom, as expected, sharing all of Lucia's difficulties. His job required him to do anything and everything that was asked. Copy files, deliver files, help with the report. If he couldn't finish writing it, he would be scolded. Go out and buy all kinds of food and drink. Wait. There was always a never-ending list of things to do. On the first day, everyone was ordering coffee, and when Lucia's name was called, she thought they were going to buy it for her. Lucia had even politely thanked her supervisor. Then the supervisor's face fell. "Thank me for what? I told you to buy it for us. Didn't you understand?" When Lucia started her company internship, no one knew she was the owner's daughter. When she was little, she used to visit her dad in the office very often. She shouldn't be ignored like this. Someone was bound to recognize her. At noon, before Lucia's meal, she was sent to buy coffee. These white-collars really lived a good life. "Go eat. I'll pick up the coffee," Cole said. "No, you're not from my department. If you bought it, they'd look for trouble with me," Lucia said. Lucia went out alone to buy coffee. Although the distance wasn't too far, it still took another 20 minutes to walk there. So Lucia took the bus to save time. $1 was worth it to get back fast. This time, she got on the bus, but she was feeling drowsy and her eyelids drooped. When she came back to her senses, she didn't know where she was. She quickly got out of the bus and prepared to figure out what part of town she was in. However, after she got off the bus, her gaze landed on the car on the other side of the road. It was a luxury car that Lucia immediately recognized. Dalen is eating here? Lucia thought. Just as she was thinking, she saw Dalen walk out of the clubhouse with his bodyguards surrounding him.